sponsor, or employer. Two Cops, One Donut isn't responsible for anything said by guests or for any videos, clips, or content shown during the live stream. This show is intended for adult audiences only. We cover real incidents, we show graphic and sometimes disturbing footage, and we don't shy away from strong language or adult conversations. There may or may not also be alcohol involved. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Everything you hear or see on the show is for entertainment and educational purposes. It is not legal advice, and it's not tactical instruction, and it shouldn't be used for such. By continuing to watch, you're telling us that you understand, you accept all of this. All right, now let's get into it. All right, welcome back. Two Cops, One Donut. I am your host, Sergeant Erik Lavigne, and today I have with me the one, the only, Zoel Murphy. You know him as REDDOG, former Atlanta PD, now retired, and with us all the way out across the world from Vietnam. What's up, Murph?
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you for having me on the show today. I appreciate the invite.
Hell yeah, brother. Anytime, man. It's one of those things you just tend to gravitate towards like-minded people. You know what they say? You should surround yourself with, or successful people surround themselves with like-minded people. So I just happened to run across one of your videos at one point, and the first thing that stood out was the title of it said, "Abolish the Police." And here I see a man in an Atlanta PD uniform, and he's yelling, "Abolish the police." And I was like, I need to know more about this man, because like me, there's a lot more behind just hearing some short reel about you wanting to call out bad policing. And I think people that know me now know, like, okay, he shows good stuff. He talks about the bad stuff, and all that. And so I was like, I need to reach out to you. So I reached out to you, and you were more than willing to have a chat, and I appreciate that.
Super excited, man. I was, I've been checking out your content for a little bit, and I really appreciated that balanced moderation of a guy who was in the field. We have a tendency to attract people who are real polarized in our beliefs and our views about things, and cops have strong opinions, man. We'll see a lot of them today, because I know this is a wild swing off into left field. People probably have not heard this coming from a retired officer before, but I've had a long time to think about this, so I'm looking forward to talking about it, man.
I like it. Let me get some things out of the way real quick. If you are joining us from Instagram or from TikTok, you guys will see me look back and forth, because I literally have Instagram on one side and TikTok on the other. It's really hard for me to keep up with the chat on those guys. So if you are joining us from Instagram or TikTok, please jump over to our YouTube channel, Two Cops, One Donut, all spelled out. And then we can see your chat a lot better. Or I think if you're on our Facebook or LinkedIn, we may be able to see it as well. But YouTube is where it's at. If you really want to be a part of the conversation, that's what we're recommending, because that is where the community pretty much lives and chats, and everybody's got a place in here. Your voice has a place on the table. We don't shy away from anything. I think MJ blocked me somehow. I cannot see any of her chats. Who's MJ? Are they talking about my mom? They might be talking about my mom.
Is your mama MJ?
My mom's on here all the time. She was on this morning's show. I hope she didn't think that was the only one I was doing today. She probably got something going on. But looking at the chat, we got our guy. So I just learned this about our guy. He said, "Hi, chat. Who watched Leah?" He's talking about Long Island audit court case today. I did catch some of the highlight clips, and his name's Sean Paul Reyes. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've been tracking that.
He's a First Amendment auditor. We've had him on the show a couple times, but he's like one of the OGs. He's like one of the best, and does a really good job. But there's a viral video of him visiting this, I think it's New Jersey or maybe Connecticut cop that pulls a gun on him and spits at his face. It became this real big thing. So
I missed that.
Yeah,
I realized that my feed is probably filtered through my location a little bit too, so I don't always get all the Good stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you probably don't get a lot of the cool shit. Yeah, just keep following Two Cops One Donut. You'll see a lot of the good stuff. So,
Yeah, man. No, for sure.
but so Long Island Audit, I think our guy actually moderates his channel or some other big guy's channel. I just learned this about our guy.
Mhm.
He's a pretty big deal in the mod world. So I'm
Okay.
very humbled that he comes to our channel and partakes in the conversations.
Yeah,
But
man. Good to
just
see you, man.
like giving shots out to the people we're seeing in the chats right now.
Okay.
Twitchy Skitch is out there. Shotguns and Tattoos. Mr. Bill Fold. David Edmonston. Um, who else is in there? Phil Wilson. What's up, Phil? That looks like a newer name. I like
Okay.
giving shots out to new people.
What's going on, Phil?
And for the chat, once again, if you want your comment to be read, guaranteed, super chats, all that stuff, that helps you get to the front of the line. We appreciate that. All your hard-earned money goes right back into the show. Um, Follows, likes, subscribes, all that crap that the kids say that really helps the channel out, and we appreciate that. But with that said, let's turn it over to our guest. All right, we got all the
Okay.
that out of the way. K Palm, what's up, brother? I see you joining in right there. Um,
Paul.
Yep, looking over at the TikTok. If you're over on TikTok, Big Andrew just said FTP. Great song. Love me some NWA. Uh,
Yeah, man.
um,
Whole
please,
different ring to it now.
right now, just jump over to our YouTube channel if you really want to be a part of the chat. I see Adam Paints on there is over there. Phil Wilson. You guys jump over to our YouTube channel if you really want to be a part of the chat. But Murph, you,
Yeah, man.
sir, let's get into you. I want to know where you from, what got you into a life of service being a cop, and then
Yeah.
kind of tell us what your specialty was in policing.
Yeah, for sure. So, I was your most annoying. We were talking about this the other day when I was a young dude. I was your most annoying typical Boy Scout. Like I just knew that I was going to come into policing as a young man and just revolutionize the whole entire thing, right? I was that guy who wanted to get out there and I was there early and stayed late and I'd pick up every case and nobody was allowed on my beat and I was super excited in the academy. So policing for me was something that seemed like a good idea. I came on to the Atlanta Police Department in November 16th, 2004 is when I was hired to APD. So of course, we go through the academy, which was about 21 weeks at the time. And I knew what I wanted to do when I was a young dude. I've been in Atlanta since 97, originally from Huntersville, North Carolina. I'd love to claim Charlotte. My whole life was in Charlotte. I went to high school in Charlotte, but our little house out in the country was in Huntersville next to Lake Norman. And so I grew up in an area where the people had a good relationship with the police. Interestingly enough, and I know that that's going to sound weird, I'll circle back to it later, but we were the only Black family in an all-white country neighborhood, and the police are actually super cool to me, and I didn't have any issues with them. So when I was young, we'd see them at the school, we'd see them in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. It was small town community policing. So everybody kind of knew each other. So I didn't grow up with that typical aversion to the cops. I didn't really have a stigma about it. I just thought, I'm like any little boy, I'm looking at the military, I'm looking at police, I'm looking at the SWAT guys, and I'm like, that stuff is cool. I enjoy that. So I would try to spend time to talk to them when I could and learn a lot. So that fast forwards off to me being 18. I'm off in school now. I'm in Atlanta. I'm a freshman at Morehouse, and Al Gore shows up at our college. And
Okay.
it was this was probably in 2001, I think, around that time where he was campaigning. I'm sorry, 1997, around the time where he was campaigning. So he shows up at the college and, we see all the Secret Service guys there, all the CAT team guys are there, all of the FBI guys are there. But we also see this big group of Black clad guys who, as far as I was concerned, was just their ninja section. I didn't know what they were about. So I'm asking around because I'm not from Atlanta. I'm like, who are those dudes wearing all black? Because they were everywhere. People are like, man, that's the Red Dog. Oh, that's the Red Dog, man. People, oh, you don't fuck with them. That's the Red. And now I didn't know what it meant, but I didn't know what they were attached to. I didn't know if they were part of the presidential detail. I just knew that they look like some people who got business taken care of. And I was just fascinated with it. Anyway, fast forward over the next couple of years, I look up and realize I want to become a police officer, and the City of Atlanta Police Department had the REDDOG unit. And I knew as a recruit, I'm like, I'm gonna get over there. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to become the strongest guy that I can. I'm going to get faster. I'm going to damn sure make sure I know how to shoot every weapon system I can get my hands on. So when I showed up, I wanted to make sure that I could be a valuable asset to the team. So I had gone through my patrol, and I just patrol times, and I loved being a cop, man. I loved being a patrolman. I wasn't one of those guys who was trying to rush out of it. Absolutely love patrol. I lived in my neighborhood, 1929 Hosea Williams, at an apartment community. I'm not sure if it's still there. This was years ago, but by the time I got sworn in, I was living dead smack in the middle of my beat. So all of my guys,
that's rare.
Yeah, man. All of my people knew me. Like on the weekends, our kids played together. Our kids grew up like the folks in the community over there in Kirkwood. They grew up around each other for the time that we were there, made a lot of friends over there. So people didn't call 911. They had my cell phone number, because we all know that dispatch times are abysmal in metropolitan
Before we called it community policing, it's called owning your beat.
It was just owning your beat. People, and nobody during that time frame, I think that was just the culture. You didn't want people on your beat. If people were handling calls on your beat, you were going to be labeled real quick as being a piece of shit.
Yeah. So let's dig into that just a little bit, because not everybody in this chat has been cops, and they don't understand some of the culture, or maybe they're just not privy to knowing kind of what we're talking about. And you and I, we're a little more old school. You're a little longer in the tooth than I am, but not by much. So, guys, for anybody that worked in especially a big city, you had what was called beat ownership. Like, you had to earn a beat. You didn't. When I became a cop, you sit down, you're the rookie at roll call, and you're the rover. You bounce helping call to call, taking the sheet, as we called it. I don't know what y'all called it, but like, you're the one that was taking the call. It was yours. You're the one that was in charge of that, because you need to get all the paperwork, exercise, and the reps in as the rookie. Yep. So if there's a hot call, an awesome call, whatever it is, you're the one taking the sheet on that call. Doesn't matter whose beat it is. You're running around helping. You're proving that you deserve a beat. And then when the team starts saying, the rookie's starting to get it, like, we understand, like, then the Sarge takes note, and the Sarge is going to be like, all right, Murph, you're doing a good job. We're going to give you beat 27 or whatever the hell it's called. And you're like, oh shit, I got my own beat. I earned a beat.
Yes. Super excited.
And it's awesome.
And you had to earn it in that time frame. They weren't just passing them out. Yeah.
Yeah. And for you to get your own beat in you where you lived, like, that's just awesome. So
yeah, man.
So that's it. Was that how beat ownership was for you where you were at?
Yeah, it was the exact same situation, because when I came on, we still had a lot of old heads that were still in the profession. So the guys who had been there 30, 25 and 30 years, a lot of those guys were still on patrol. And when I tell you, those guys were connected to everybody, they knew everybody. And I remember looking at that thinking like, man, I really want to pattern that. So I just spent my time getting to know everybody. And I remember thinking like, well, what's a better way to get to know everybody than to live here? So I remember having a conversation with my wife at the time, and she was a little kind of iffy about it, but I was young and excited about stuff, and wound up talking to her. And for what it's worth, we never had any issues over there because everybody knew each other. And now, for what it's worth, we had a little neighborhood that was right on the backside. And anybody who knows Atlanta is familiar with Kirkwood, and probably if I say Bixby Courts, I stayed on the backside of the fence from Bixby Courts. Everybody knows what that was back there. That was a community where we had a lot more problems. Yeah. But even in all of that, I think the worst thing that happened in my whole time there was I came out one day and somebody had stuck a screwdriver up underneath my truck. But beat integrity is what we called it. It was just the most important thing when you were clocked in. Like, when we used to tell each other all the time, like, and I remember, and it's interesting when our dispatcher would send out calls, we would stack calls that we were not even able to go to yet, just to keep people off the beat. So if I were to go and let's say I'm out on an accident or something like that, and then we get another call that comes up of a theft, or something of that nature, if another unit or dispatch tries to send it to another unit, we'll say, hey, radio, hold that unit. I'm almost wrapped up here. Let me go ahead and pick that up. So that's what we called stacking calls, just because beat integrity was that important. Like, you wanted to make sure you were given this privilege of being a beat officer. You didn't want to have other people managing your beat for you, because then they're going to give it to somebody who's more proactive and more able to manage it.
Yep.
But that's how it worked.
SAJ195 over on YouTube said, at Atlanta PD, we called it beat integrity, and it was like religion on patrol. Murph, speak the truth about that. I like it. Mr. Billfold upped his membership, and he said, Mom, for the love of Pete, unblock me. Mom, did you block Mr. Billfold?
What'd you do, bro?
I know. Yeah. So remember how I told you on this show, like, when somebody doesn't like me, like, I tend to foster their chat more. Like, if they're really coming in here giving me some shit. Mr. Billfold was the originator of that. He couldn't stand us at the beginning. He wasn't in a place for himself yet to be ready to hear what I had to say. But slowly but surely, we won him over. I got him on the show. I let him to the point where he debated one of the top authorities in use of force in the nation, Von Kleem, to where they debated qualified immunity. It was a thing of beauty. It was a fun show. It was really fun. And I probably talked to him on the phone once every week or two. We bullshit. I kind of tell him, but you know how it is. It's like, I need people outside of police work to keep me level-headed and to understand things, you know, because we're stuck in a fishbowl working here. And, you know, if you're around like-minded people all the time, you tend to start falling in line with the rest of the school of fish in your fishbowl. And I ain't trying to be about that life, but Mr. Billfold was one of the ones that was very outspoken. And now, I mean, you see, he's trying to chat it up with my mom. Like, that's the type of hurdles you try to jump over here and win people over in a good way. But
some of the best connections, friendships, relationships can be fostered after people out of people who started off as being opposing to your positioning. You know, because especially once they get on, they talk to you, they see what you're about, they know that you're not an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, people want to be heard. And, you know, I know for my position, I can't just come out here and make a wild statement like saying, yeah, we need to abolish the police, and not have people saying, like, hold on a second, not having anybody challenge me. And I've had plenty of people challenge me, and no shortage of my own department.
And then when they have to talk with you, then they're like, all right, he's got something here. No,
there's method to the madness.
If they're going to be honest with themselves, that's the hard part. So we had somebody over in TikTok ask, were your bosses cool with it? I think they're asking, were they cool with you working in your own beat?
Oh my goodness, they were grateful for that. Very grateful for that, because, you know, beat integrity was about more than just protecting this little space to which you're assigned for the day. It kind of comes back to that whole broken windows theory of community policing, you know, and I think it was a little bit different for me because I lived there. So they say we shouldn't take the job personal, but anybody who's ever been sworn into any position, there's no way for that to happen. There's absolutely no way. When you come across your first child who's like grievously injured, you know what I'm saying? If you're a dad, you feel that. There's no way. Now, you can't fall apart on the scene, obviously, but we can't. This premise that we don't take things personal is not true. I think anything that affects you, because we're human beings behind the badge, obviously, and if we're doing the job right, hopefully we're human beings in front of the badge. But you know, those things get to you, man. And I wanted to have that experience of feeling it, because how can you police people and you don't know what they're about? How can you serve them in that law enforcement capacity and you don't know what their actual problems really are? So for me, I was happy to do that, man. I liked it.
That's awesome. I like that. Okay, so you get on with your career. You worked your beat. You learned some street stuff. I do appreciate you saying that you didn't want to rush through the policing side of things in the street, which is something that you and I could talk about too. Is what Murph is referring to when he's saying he didn't want to rush through patrol. You will get these officers that they're trying to do the minimum amount of time in patrol so they can go get to this specialized unit.
The cool stuff.
The cool stuff. Yes. But in policing, if you rush to the cool stuff, you miss out on a lot of experience that would have benefited you more in the specialized unit. And then the unit suffers. And they got to catch you up. It's not that you're not capable. And I want to, there's a lot of people like, oh, they don't got, they don't got hardly any street experience. That doesn't mean you can't learn it on the specialized units. It takes longer and you're behind the curve. But you get the jealous motherfuckers that are like, oh, the only reason they picked Letitia is because she's a girl and she only got, 2 years in the street. Right. And they're going to use that for her whole career. She could have been a cop 20 years and been in that specialized unit for 15. And they're still going to be like, yeah, I worked with her. I was in her same academy class. She only did a year in the street.
Yeah.
Fuck that 15 years of experience on a specialized unit. That means nothing.
You got to pay your dues.
Yeah. Because you did nothing in patrol. So
yeah. And anybody in law enforcement, y'all, I can't see the chat, but I would imagine all the law enforcement guys are at least somewhere in their mind nodding their heads, because that is how you earn your stripes. In the law enforcement community, we typically have a tendency to kind of look down on people who got fast tracked, because then if you haven't been, a part of the most basic investigations, you don't know how to handle a basic accident or a domestic violence call. Yeah, you can go off to these specialized units. They'll give you machine guns and explosives. You can go off to bomb school. You can go to sniper school. You can do all this fun stuff, be a part of the gangs unit. But if you don't have the baseline for, I don't know, criminal procedure, case law, making sure that you understand how to deal with people, you're just going to be a hood ornament.
Yep.
You're just going to be a hood ornament. You've got to get that experience of doing the bread and butter before you're out there. I don't like the idea of rushing people into specialized units. So,
I'm the same. Shout out to speaking of bread and butter. Shout out to loaf of bread in the chat. What's going on, brother? Our guy had a question. He said, Sarge, what do you think about the new cannabis laws here in Texas as a felony for an eighth of a flower? That's idiotic. Don't get me started on weed.
Don't get me started on weed. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I am not a fan of something that's legal in most states now and is just going to be the trend, and having states double down on something that I would rather deal with the dude high on weed all day long versus a guy that's drunk on alcohol.
1,000 times a week and 14 times additionally on Sunday.
Exactly.
Seriously, like anybody who's ever been around someone who is intoxicated knows the difference between somebody who is intoxicated, say, with something legal like alcohol, which we all know people get on that liquid courage, as we called around Atlanta, that gorilla milk. And next thing you know, we are King Kong. And my biggest issues have come typically
milk.
from drug use. Like what? Because what happens? These guys get drunk, and next thing you know, they're beating their chest and just the most ridiculous things. Weed specifically, I don't have a memory of someone who I had an extraordinary conflict with, where I smelled the vapors of marijuana smoke from them. I've never dealt with a guy with red eyes who had just rolled a spliff, who wanted to fight. Like, how do people act when they smoke? They're chilled out. And in terms of the in terms of the legality of it and it being a felony for something that will grow in your back fucking yard is absolutely ridiculous. I think that it has a lot more implications in how the weed law started, to be perfectly honest with you. If we can turn this into like a severe offense, we can start to target the areas that we want to target a little bit more heavily. That's a whole nother topic that I'll get into a little bit later. But I think that it's abusive by the government. Whoever came up with and pushed for that should be removed from their position. And it just lacks foresight. It lacks nuance. It lacks an understanding for the amount of people who are, suffering from even cancer. And I'm not even going to get into the recreation use. Let's get into the medicinal efficacy. That's like, we've got article after article after article that says this is why it's useful. And a lot of people know that, or just getting it from their local source. But now we're going to create more criminals and more people who are going to be having like these felony convictions, which in the big system of things is good, because keeping the prison system alive with more fresh meat is ultimately what they're looking to do. So I think it's corrupt at its core. And again, guys, do y'all know why weed is even illegal?
I know.
I know you know, but for the chat, if you people get real in their feelings about this, but I would challenge anybody watching right now, if you don't know, go in your chat GPT or whatever AI that you use and put in, why is marijuana illegal? I'll skip to the good part. Back around, was it 1934, give or take, there was a movie that came out called Reefer Madness.
Yep.
And that was really a big catalyst in the change of the law. And in the movie, these black men were smoking the devil's lettuce and going crazy and running out and running around the streets willy-nilly, raping white women. And people were like, oh, we had a collective clutching of the pearls from the whole entire country. And they were like, nope. Now, before then, everybody smoked weed. It was in food. They ate it. They used it medicinally. But after that movie came out, people were scared. They were terrified. And what typically follows fear? Those are the two most powerful human motivators, right? Fear and pain. Mm-hmm. Why we torture our special forces guys to make sure they can put up with that stuff. We use fear to put that in a position of making weed an illicit substance. And since then, we've been enforcing it and sending people to jail. So what do I think? I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
I love it.
Some country, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all got to get used to my my delivery. I think it's some bullshit, and it shouldn't be illegal. Because especially when I was back in the States, that's another topic too. We got a lot of police using marijuana right now.
Yeah. Watch out. Mike over on TikTok said, Murph worked with you in Z6. I don't know if he's saying Zone 6 or Z6, but he said, you've always been a real one.
Appreciate that. Mike, I wish I knew Mike's last name, but I appreciate it. I'm thinking of a few Mikes in my head, off the top of my head. But
he's over on TikTok right now.
Okay. What up, King?
Can't see his full picture. He might. Bell, he said.
Mike Bell. Yeah. His name rings a bell. It rings a bell.
I knew you. I was like,
I couldn't help it. Oh, God.
Got him.
Yeah.
Shit. I love this quote. I've seen it many times as being a military member myself, but honoring inmates said, or does that say honoring
intimates?
Intimates. There it is. I think it said inmates. I was like, that's cool too. Whatever.
That's what it looks like with my stigmatism. From
yeah. A true soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. From G.K. Chesterton. I didn't know that's who said it though.
Salute. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I want people to know what REDDOG is. So you do your patrol stuff, you get your experience, and now you're ready to move on to some specialized units. And did you get where you were trying to go right away? You was trying to go to REDDOG. Is that what you got?
Yeah, man. Getting out in patrol and really trying to be a good beat officer, answering my calls, taking care of my neighbors. And then backing other officers up, which everybody who's in the profession knows is going to be kind of a hallmark of your reputation. When we have what we call hot calls that are happening, is that guy going to get there and be there to back us up? Is he going to be a team player and not try to take over the call? Is he one of the guys who doesn't instigate things and increase the temperature unnecessarily? So I had a lot of good OGs around me who put me in a position of making good decisions, helping me work through my mistakes. And as a rookie, I made plenty of mistakes. But back around then, they'd stick a finger in your collar and be like, hey, young blood, come here. What are you doing back there? Like, they would call you to the carpet. So I had a lot of hands on me when it comes down to shaping me wanting to get to REDDOG. You were asking about what that is. REDDOG was kicked off in the late 80s by Police Commissioner George Napper. And the crack trade during that time was really, really going absolutely crazy. We, as officers, did not know why we had the crack epidemic at the time. That's a topic that I would certainly like to circle back to. We didn't know the reason we had the crack epidemic was because of the government at the time, but we were out there making sure to mitigate the violence that was associated with it, right? People were getting killed all the time and crime was going crazy in Atlanta. So the commissioner was like, listen, we've got to put a unit together that is going to strike fear into the people who were out victimizing the community, because patrol couldn't handle it. You'd have 20, 30 dope boys standing on the corner and the patrolman pulls up by himself. He's outnumbered and they knew that. And so don't get me wrong, the beat officers, especially around that time, they got respect, but sometimes you needed a little bit more of an intimidating force for that time to accomplish the objective. And the objective was to run every drug dealer out of Georgia. That's what REDDOG stood, the acronym that it stood for was REDDOG, was run every drug dealer out of Georgia. And we believed, I mean, down to the core of our being, that drugs were what were fucking up our communities. And we had to get rid of the people who were causing all of these deaths, that were, you know, that were responsible for all the violence. And then, of course, for all of the property crimes that are associated with that, because drugs, the drug game never stands alone by itself. Because of the illegality of it, we've got other associated property crimes. We've got local homeless people breaking into houses and stealing stuff so that they can take to the dope house in exchange for drugs. So there was just a whole circle of negativity that was surrounded behind the thing that I felt like during that time I was doing the right thing. Like, because I loved my community, That's why I lived there. And so ridding drugs and all that violence and all that other stuff that was associated with it, or getting rid of it, that sounded like hot shit to me as a young dude. So getting over to REDDOG, this unit that I'd seen walking around in this cool tactical gear, they've got this just amazing. We saw them at a Caribbean festival one time. And I remember, anybody who's familiar with Atlanta knows every year that we have this big Caribbean festival, and it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people out in the streets, they're partying. We've got floats, we got women shaking behind with, you know, scantily clad. For a young dude in college, it's just like, oh, this is just heaven. And I remember we were all out in the streets, and I had somebody come and gave me my first big red, like, party cup filled with tequila, just out of a jug. We were off the chain. And next thing I know, these slick top cars are driving through the crowd, bumping people slow, but they're on the loudspeaker, move, get out of the way, get the F out of the way. And it's like a caravan of slick tops. Meaning, when I say slick top, meaning the type of the old Crown Victorias, but without the lights on the top. Those were the cars that REDDOG drove, just lower profile, so that when you're coming down the block at night, you can't see the profile of the police lights. Anyway, it's in the middle of the day. These cars come, and then those same guys wearing black, they hop out. And I will never forget, I saw the biggest human being I'd ever seen in my life wearing that uniform. A guy who they call Goob. I'm not going to use his name on the podcast. He gets out of the car and he's surrounded by easily 500 people. He gets out of the car and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know drinking in public was illegal in Atlanta. We were just out there in a big old party. He gets out of the car. It's like, everybody get back. I was like, Jesus Christ, that guy's going to eat me alive. But I remember just being impressed with how they managed that big old scene.
Yeah,
with just a few people. There was like, maybe there wasn't more than 15 guys that showed up, I think, at that time. But everybody did exactly what they told them. They were a show of force. There's a show of force and a submission to that force. And we had no question that if we had nutted up, any of those big men were going to come over there and make us do what they were asking us to do.
So Mr. Bill said, I hate to cut you off, but Mr. Bill, because I know we're going to get questions as we go.
Yeah,
Mr. Billfold said REDDOG were basically like jump out boys who smashed folks. And then our guy asked, so being a jump out boy, how many times did you violate the Fourth Amendment?
That's a great question. I was waiting for it. That wasn't our stilo. Now, I'm going to tell you straight out, REDDOG has a lot of stories that are associated with it for the violation of people's civil rights. I'll go ahead and throw it out there. REDDOG was the unit that was sued as a part of the Eagle raid, the gay club in Atlanta, the nightclub raid, helping out the Vice unit. And I know I'm going to be opening a whole bunch of doors for questions, and I'll be happy to address all of them. But our team was trained. And so I think that there was an idea that we would just pull up. And I'm not discounting people's experiences, because I know at times throughout history that happened. They just popped up out of the van, and next thing we know, people were getting run down, beat up, and all this other stuff. We operated on probable cause. My cases were made on probable cause. I made it through 3 years in Red Dog. I think I had maybe one use of force complaint. So my team was not out there just doing whatever willy-nilly. We're talking about how many times have I violated the Fourth Amendment. That wasn't my thing, man. If we were jumping out on somebody, we either saw something, smelled something, or had very strong reasonable suspicion of something, and we would get out and go and talk to people. So we were not leading with this jump out and beat down for which Red Dog was associated. And for what that's worth, that wasn't just my team, that was the unit at the time. I was there from 2008 to 2011. So we weren't operating under that 80s rule of just jump out there and beat up everybody and, be the big, the hammer and leaving people in a trail of despair and confusion. If we were making arrests, and we would sit and as long as it was safe to do so, we would even explain to the mamas and the grandmas. I've got people who are in my comment section right now that are on my page that are saying, "Hey Murph, I remember when you showed up and fill in the blank happened and you treated me, you took me to jail, you took my brother to jail, but you treated my grandma well." So to the question, how many times did we violate Fourth Amendment rights? That's not the era that we were in. We weren't doing that because, one, that's not what I signed up to do it for. Were we aggressive? Yes. If you took off running and didn't submit to an arrest, were you going to get run down? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How many times did I just see a bunch of black men on the corner and decide to jump out and beat them up? Zero. How many times did I plant dope? Zero. How many times did we go and just beat up somebody for no reason? Zero. Like, those things look good on TV, and I think that it's very entertaining, but the guys that I worked with were good dudes, and nobody would have tolerated that. I will tell you that one time we had a guy resisting arrest that he would just not stop. He was thrashing and kicking and going all over the place and acting wild. And I, as a young officer, I was aggressive with him as well. I remember that specifically. And when I say aggressive with him, meaning while he's thrashing all around, I want to jacking him up against the wall, right up underneath his chin, just like this. It shut down the debate. Now, he was in handcuffs, and that looked really, really bad. Now, no one cared that beforehand he had spit on two of us and kicked a couple of us and all this other stuff. The optic is always going to look bad when you use force. That's why it's called force. It's not called, it's not a handshake. It's not a pat on the head. Force always looks ugly. I wish I could make it look cute, but I haven't met anyone yet who's been able to apply force to stop fucked up behaviors, and it looks real pretty like you see on TV. I wasn't trained in jujitsu at the time. I don't even think it was big yet.
Yeah.
But I hope that answers your question. That wasn't our thing.
So, okay. You get to Red Dog and kind of go down the career path with Red Dog. Like, you get there, you're learning the ropes, you do that, and then shit goes down. Let's go down that whole path.
Yeah. So, Red Dog was a really cool experience for me, man. And, I was appreciative because I had my team leader I'd been looking up to him for a long time. Like, this guy was the best in the business because he had been trained by the best in the business. Like, Red Dog, was a very generational unit, meaning that the best dope cops typically would pick guys who they saw promising potential in and train them just to do like in the things that they knew how to do. So we were really heavy doing investigations. We were up on top of buildings with telescopic lenses and video cameras and stuff like that, because I didn't want to be known for just smashing down doors. I wanted to be known for making good cases. And so we did really extensive investigations. And that was one of the things that I was interested in doing from the get-go, because when I was on patrol and afterwards, when I worked in the Zone 6 field investigations team, my Sergeant Mills was the best in the game. I'm talking about this lady. She knew dope inside and out. She taught us how to do reversals, how to do undercover buys, how to do the whole 9 yards. So going over there was just kind of like the next evolution for me of my career. And then plus just being able to get into the tactical theater as a young kid who was not allowed to play with guns or even have squirt guns or anything of that nature. I was happy to be able to transition over to do that because I wanted to be the best at it. So We carried the HK UMP-40 submachine gun. I was a surgeon with that. We had some Colt semi-automatic carbines and shotguns. We all had to go to level 1 SWAT school. So that's stuff, I'll be honest with you, that's the cool stuff I was talking about earlier, but I knew that I had to pay my dues to get there. So, but just in answer to your question, now I'm at REDDOG. That was from February 2000, November 2008. No, I'm sorry, the beginning of 08. I think it was either January, February of 08 until the unit was disbanded in February of 2011. And just had a good time over there, man. Participated in a hostage rescue one time. But one of the best feelings, I would say, is after we would pull out on a group of guys or whatever, get a bunch of dope, get a bunch of money, was having somebody's grandma come up and bring us like a plate of cupcakes and be like, baby, they had been hanging out on my porch every day and I couldn't get rid of them. Thank you for doing this. That's the part that really hit home the most.
Damn. I've never been able to take part in a hostage rescue. I don't even think I've ever had the opportunity present itself. I think people think that happens a lot more than it really does.
Right.
But if it is going to happen, it usually does happen in a bigger city. But yeah, never happened for me.
There.
So yeah, our guy asked, how many times did you go into somebody's pocket for ID without any probable cause?
Same amount of times that I had violated their Fourth Amendment rights.
So none.
That is, none. It's just like that was not our thing. And I think that's and it's difficult to talk about that because we have the different layers, right? We have to recognize that. Actually, I'll take that back. Let me rewind my statement because I need to answer the question. How many times did I go into someone's pockets without probable cause? Often. Because we didn't need it. Probable cause is not required to go in someone's pockets. What we need in order to search someone, to pat someone down, and there's a couple of different layers of things, is reasonable suspicion. Now, for what it's worth, reasonable suspicion would allow me to look at something in a situation and say, okay, well, these guys over here, I just saw them do a hand-to-hand transaction, whereas a guy looked around, pulled out a small amount of currency, handed it to a guy, and the guy appeared to hand something back to him. Now, did we see exactly what happened there? No, because at 10 or 15 yards, we can't really see something this small. But based upon what we often refer back to in law enforcement is KTE. You'll hear cops talking about it all the time. Knowledge, training, and experience. We had been to extensive drug training. We knew what a hand-to-hand narcotics transaction looked like. And that was enough for us to be able to articulate ourselves as to like why we went over there, why we made that stop. I saw him put an unknown object into his right pocket, something of that nature. That reasonable suspicion would allow us to go over and at least kick off the conversation to start talking to them. Now, a lot of other times you would have other factors, but just running up on people and going in their pockets was a no-go. But without probable cause, often, because probable cause wasn't there yet, you have to work your way towards it. Probable cause is that set of facts or circumstances that would lead a reasonable and prudent person to believe that a crime has been or is about to be committed. It's more than reasonable suspicion, but it's actually less than actual certainty. So there's that space in the middle where it's, okay, we could see that this happened. Probable cause is what occurs after we already make contact, realize that these are, in fact, this is crack or weed or whatever it happened to be at the time. Now we have probable cause to make the arrest. So that's the way that it works. You need probable cause to make the arrest, but you can stop the person, you can investigate, you can do a frisk if you have a reasonable suspicion that a person is armed and dangerous, for example. That's what allows us to pat down the outer layers of clothing. So you have to understand that there's different layers of it. So in keeping with the language, that's how that worked. But we never went in people's pockets just for no reason, because that would be a waste of time. We had to see something that occurred, and then we would make contact with them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hope that answers the question.
No, you're good. So you get rolling. You're making bust. You're helping out on a hostage situation, and then you said you were between 08 and 11. Is that what it was?
Yeah, 2008 and 2011. The unit was shut down. After the Eagle, Red Dog was involved in a nightclub raid of a gay club. Interestingly enough, I had never really missed a lot of work. Coming to work every day was just, I loved it. So I think I had just a few days of absence, separate from a kid being born in the unit. The day of the Eagle, I don't know why, and we'll circle back to talk about it yet. Anybody who is not familiar with it, there was a series of code section or city ordinances that our vice unit, the unit that investigates like illicit like sexual operations and activity in the city of Atlanta, had observed on doing some plainclothes operations inside of the Eagle, like people that were dancing. I can't remember all of the specifics of it, but they brought in Red Dog as a backup unit to help because they needed manpower. That was a terrible idea. That was a stupid, unnecessary. You talk about bringing a bull in a china shop. It's just, why would we bring the city's most aggressive, notorious unit into the most sensitive environment in the city of Atlanta? Was just a series of stupid decisions waiting for a bad outcome. And of course we got it. That particular day, I don't know what came over me. And this is part of the reason why I was not in the lawsuit. I called my sergeant that day. I was like, hey, Sergeant, just out of curiosity, I'm not feeling too hot. What we got going on today? True story. And he said, I don't know, it's some kind of a raid at a gay bar or something like that. We'll see you when you get here. I said, no, you won't. I'm not coming. Whose idea was this? This was a stupid idea.
Yeah.
And so we got to it. Murph, I don't have time for this. I said, you're going to have time for it sooner or later. And I sicked out. I said, I'm not coming to that.
Yeah.
As soon as I found out what it was, I'm like, I'm not coming. That is probably one of the best decisions that I ever made.
I would say so.
Because my words came back being true. So I had a good knack for avoiding the bullshit for the most part. And I wound up sticking out on the day of the Eagle because I said, this ain't going to turn out well.
So what happened? What was the controversial thing of them going in there?
So, yeah, no, thank you for asking that. So the big issue, the problem and the controversy came because the allegations were that people were rummaging through people's pockets. And ultimately what wound up happening is that during the briefing, right, they were like, hey, we need this manpower. We're going to make entry into this flight. Red Dog was used to serving search warrants for drugs and weapons and for violent criminals. That's what we were there for. And so the unit itself was used to conducting things in a certain way. Now, the guys, they knew that they were going into a gay club. And so it wasn't a dynamic entry from my understanding where they were coming in and pointing guns at everybody and doing the whole 9 yards. It was pretty chill. From my understanding, and it's been a while since I've looked at the case. From my understanding, everybody just kind of walked in. It's like, hey, everybody sit down on the ground. This is a raid, what have you. And the problem that arose was that the unit didn't have the constitutional authority to go in there and detain everybody. We didn't have the constitutional authority to go in there and start running everybody's driver's licenses. The supervision was poor and abysmal, and the officers weren't even briefed well as to what it was they were actually doing. And so by the time we have this thing, it was just a clusterfuck of nonsense waiting to happen. People knew who Red Dog was. And and forgive me if I did not remember this correctly, because it's been a very, very long time. But initially, the complaint didn't really percolate. It didn't really turn into anything. It wasn't until the city started giving backlash to the attorney and to the people who were subject to this. And for what it's worth, to the people who went through that, it was absolutely awful. And it was completely wrong because the police department was not doing what they were supposed to do. Failed supervision, poor communication, poor instructions as to what's happening. And so you have officers that are like, yeah, give me your pot, so patting pockets and getting IDs. Yeah, that's a problem. And so it turned initially, from my understanding, what they wanted was just a public apology. Just saying, hey, we shouldn't have done this. And of course, the city of Atlanta is not good with acknowledging accountability or responsibility for doing something fucked up. They didn't give them that. So they're like, all right, well, this is certainly going to be a lawsuit. And then that's when everything exploded. That lawsuit came through. And the next thing we know, it is front and center on the front page of anybody talking about anything policing. How the Red Dog unit came in and were threatening to beat up people and making allegations for using derogatory language and all this other stuff. You know, somebody had said something along the lines that there was an allegation that was made of, oh, this is more fun than, you know, raiding ends in a crack house, the N-word at a crack house, or, you know, making, you know, statements about the gay community. These guys who I spent my time with every day, my assistant team leader, who is a lesbian female, just that wasn't language that I had ever heard before, ever. It sounds really like a Hollywood movie. And so those were not the people that I knew, and I had never seen them act like that. And certainly nobody would have acted like that around the people on our unit who were in the gay community. That wasn't a thing. But again, people can say you weren't there. So all I can say is those weren't the dudes that I know. And I don't believe that all of the allegations that happened did, but I do know that they did violate those people's Fourth Amendment rights because of a bad briefing, poor information, a bunch of supervisors who didn't know what they were doing. And the city paid dearly for that. $1 million at least lawsuit. I think probably much more than that. A lot of people disciplined within the command staff, but ultimately the people who should have been held the most accountable, the higher ups in the brass, they skated.
No.
Nobody ever got held to the fire like the way they should have.
Now, did you have officers get fired or charged at all?
Yeah, I had several officers that were fired behind that. If I remember, I think one of the sergeants over the vice unit was fired. And then there were other lawsuits that were happening around that time of the Eagle as well. I remember having to sit in for a couple of depositions for officers for the Civilian Review Board when they were looking to even get their jobs back. But I think some of those I think they may have been fired for other items that followed. But yeah, there were a couple of heads that rolled after the Eagle, but none of the ones that should have. Our issue was institutional and was very much top down. And I didn't see any chiefs, deputy chiefs, anything of that nature having to get spit roasted.
Okay. So we've built up a timeline, and I think anybody that's been listening to this whole thing up till now, they're going to be like, Lavigne, why did you bring this guy on? He seems to be like a regular back the blue guy, a thin blue line guy. All that stuff is what the tone probably comes across as, and that's not what attracted me to you and finding you and all that stuff. I as a cop in the experience level, I'm starting to see the tonal change of the Boy Scout who looked up to police and loved it. I can see that starting to change.
Yeah.
So can you kind of go down that path of you being in the Red Dog, and then what was the epiphany, enlightening I can't say that fucking word. Enlightenment moment. There we go.
Enlightenment's a good moment. Yeah.
That things started to like go off in your brain like, this isn't what I thought, or I'm seeing things differently.
Yeah. I was actually while I was on the unit that things really I really started to question things. I remember one time there was a couple that was killed in the Virginia Highlands. As a male and a female who wound up, I think maybe the man got killed. I don't think it was both of them. It was in the Virginia Highlands. And so that was a notable case at the time because they wound up having pretty much all of the units that were under the special enforcement section conduct a big canvas. And that canvas went on, excuse me, for weeks, if I remember. Typically, if there's a homicide that happens in the city of Atlanta, we all know how crime works. People have a tendency to victimize the people who look like them. So black on black crime in the city of Atlanta is something that we see instances of. But when we would see homicides in the black communities, they would do a canvas that would typically last about a day. You know, sometimes they would do it over the weekend or something like that. We had never before attributed weeks and weeks of time and energy and resources, whereas we were pulled from our normal patrol duties of going out and looking for the drug dealers and the violent guys. to circle back around and knock on doors and say, hey, pass out flyers and say, hey, did you see anything? And so one of the guys in the unit brought that up and actually said, hey, he said it at roll call because they told us that we were once again going to be participating in the canvas. And I think that he brought up a fair question. He said, why don't we do this in the Black community when somebody gets killed? Why are we just doing this here? And he wound up getting written up for that.
Really?
He got written up for asking that question.
Oh, shit.
And I got reprimanded for laughing.
I laughed right away.
Right.
You fucking kidding me?
Yeah. So, but I think that was the big thing that thumped me in the head. And when I connected the dots, because when I was on REDDOG, we had a neighborhood in the city of Atlanta called Buckhead. Buckhead was zone 2. It's on the northern end of town.
I know about Buckhead.
Yeah, you know about, anybody from Atlanta knows about Buckhead. That's where Phipps Mall, that's where Lenox Mall is, high-end shops, where the folks, most of the money that is circulated from tax revenue and from businesses in Atlanta comes out of Buckhead. And I think that may have changed over the years since they've been kind of building up through the city and stuff like that. But Buckhead was where it's at. That's where the clubs were. That's where the night clubs were. That's where they had like a whole strip of like entertainment establishments. Like Buckhead was the money hub, but it was also more in that time predominantly white. And we were stone cold prohibited. And I want to make sure people understand, stone cold prohibited from going up there. Now, us being the little, side quest rebels that we wanted to be, from time to time, if it was a slow night and we had hit all the other zones and we couldn't find anything, we would shoot up to zone 2 and make meth and crack and all kinds of cases, gun cases, left and right.
Yeah.
Everybody in their mama knows that some of the biggest instances of cocaine use are not happening on the side of the street, but are happening up in office buildings with guys wearing suits and ties. We all know it. And we would go up there and make but every time we would get fussed at. If there are any REDDOG guys watching, I don't know if there are right now, they would say that. They would say the same. Anybody who was an Atlanta police officer during that time knows that REDDOG was not allowed to go up to Buckhead and was actively encouraged not to go. So I think that after that shooting, I started connecting the dots, like we're not policing all areas the same. And even during that time frame, looking at the arrest stats across the board, especially when it came down to drug enforcement and stuff like that, you just found a whole lot more in the areas where people look like me than we did of folks who look like you, because they said, don't go up there at all. Too heavy of a presence, they would say. And that didn't sit right with me because all of us knew that there's a shitload of dope up there. So I started questioning our command staff, and I started wondering, like, well, why would they not want us to do that? Crime is crime, right? We were in this black ass city of Atlanta with this black ass mayor and this black ass city council and all this other stuff. Why are we still catering to that? And it just that was the beginning of the things that I started seeing the policing like super not sitting right with me, because it was disproportionate enforcement. And any of the guys who were around during that time, they would tell you, like, we were stone cold prevented from going up there.
So what do you say to the argument a lot of people like to make is, if you see one bad cop and a good cop sees that and doesn't do anything about it, now you've got two bad cops.
Now you've got two bad cops. You do. In retrospect, and looking back on things, and one thing that we don't get in law enforcement, and I'm learning this as I look at my comments, is we don't have a lot of room to grow when it comes down to public perception, right? So if you ever witnessed one fucked up instance and you didn't make a big spectacle or a big deal out of it, or if you didn't go and call the news or, call in the cavalry for accountability, then on the other side of things, they're like, fuck you even talking about, dude, you're part of the problem. You could have done something during that time and you didn't. And I had to really sit with that to be like, well, damn, then that means that I am in fact a part of the problem. Now, mind you, I had already reconciled the fact that years later I had made friends with a Navy SEAL buddy who was on that time, and I'm going to connect him with you. During that time was on SEAL Team 8. Their job was government destabilization. And so at the same time, that we were locking up people's sons for cocaine. He was in South America flying C-130s of cocaine to and from the cartels because they were more stable than the local governments. And I remember sitting in his house after I retired, smoking a blunt and looking at scrapbooks like, holy shit. And I cried for a couple of days. I cried in his house. I cried when I got home. Because I'm like, God, what did I do? What was I part of? I see in the comments somebody said that cognitive dissonance is a very real thing, and that is true. I was disconnected from the reality of the harm that I was causing because of the circle I was involved in, where a guy wearing that same American flag patch as me was doing the opposite of what I was working to do, and it fucked me up. It really did, because we didn't know. We were all, I was in 70, I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s. Do y'all remember the DARE program?
Yeah, somebody mentioned it in the comments earlier about the DARE and crime McGruff and all that shit.
We believed that hook, line, and sinker. We were the generation of them coming into the classrooms, bringing the big billfold styled fold out thing, and them showing us all the different drugs and how each and every one would fuck you up. That's what they did in the school. This is cocaine, and then this is crack, and that's 10 times worse than cocaine. And this is weed, and that's the devil's lettuce, and just, and they would go through each one. And so they're sitting here feeding us what was it, like once a month that the DARE officer would come and let everybody know how much drugs, everything was going to ruin our lives. So yes, cognitive dissonance is a real thing, but I think also our training and our environment was a very real thing too. Now that doesn't make excuses for it. People say there's no excuse for ignorance. I would dare say that it depends on what it is that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we were doing. Like I said, we were the Boy Scouts out there, and we thought that we were doing a service to the world by doing all this drug enforcement, and that just wasn't the case.
Okay, so you have this epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
The light bulb's on.
Yep.
Your unit gets shut down.
Right.
So now you have to find a new home. Where did you land, and how did you finish?
Yeah, so I landed on the other side of things because we had a bunch of guys now that had all this training and experience, and they didn't know where to put them. So they stuck me over in the gang unit for a while, and while I was there, I was just tucked away. Like, didn't get involved in any major investigations, didn't do too much, went out and participated in some of the sweeps and stuff that they would do. But I kind of stayed out of the way because losing REDDOG at that time was a trauma of sorts. And that sounds really stupid, but when you work really hard to try to get to something, remind you this goal to get there was several years in the making. And so to see all of that fall apart and to have a unit that we liked being the good guys, and we were happy to be the good guys. We were happy to be the axe behind the break glass in case of emergency. To have that immediately gone was just like, who are we now? What do we meaning within the construct of this law enforcement community? Who are we now? What do we do?
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? So, people got scattered out to the wind. Then after the gang unit, I wound up going to Zone 1, which is on the west side of Atlanta, and just picked right back up. I think I was on patrol in Zone 1 for one day before the specialized unit. Each zone has a specialized unit called a FIT team. It stands for the Field Investigations Team.
Okay.
So they do the plainclothes stuff, surveillance, undercover buys, that kind of stuff. I was on patrol, I think, for like one day before the sergeant on the FIT team was like, hey, get over here. And he, as luck would have it, was my former team leader in REDDOG, so he knew what I was about. I wound up going over to the FIT team and doing my investigations with them and just picking up with, I was kind of had my tail tucked in between my legs for a little bit, but got back into it, didn't miss a beat, jumped back into the dope game. And I did that for a while until I wound up going to SWAT. And SWAT was where I really, my mind started changing significantly.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought SWAT was because SWAT had a lot of guys who were in REDDOG before. SWAT was always the ultimate goal. I was looking at REDDOG. I was like, yeah, man, I want to do that. I want to go do it. But ultimately, I wanted to drive around in the Linco. Linco is the company that makes a couple of big armored vehicles.
Bearcats and stuff.
Yeah, the first one that they made was called the Bear, and that was just a big old giant looking postal truck. It wasn't quite as aerodynamic. It didn't have as much efficacy. It had like turrets and stuff like that. But the Bearcat was just, it looked like a 10-ton Raptor. It was armored. It had the turret up top. It had gun ports. We had an oxygen system on the inside.
Yeah.
And so we wound up getting like 3 of those in the time that I was over there. So it was exciting to get into this thing that I'd always wanted to do, because REDDOG was seen at that time as the evolution of, SWAT was seen at that time as the evolution of REDDOG.
Right.
So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it seemed like the next logical step. You've had all this.
It's like going semi-pro and then making it to the big leagues.
To the big leagues. That's what it felt like.
So question.
Sure.
Now you're starting to have this awakening. You're going through it. REDDOG was what put a sour taste in your mouth.
Right.
Was there a part of you that thought, well, if I go to SWAT, I'm not out there anymore. I'm only being used for shit situations that everybody wants us there. Even the community wants us there for that. Like typically SWAT they don't do what I call police work. They're a tactical unit that comes in, seeks and destroys in a way. And then they leave. Like there's a lot of intelligence that goes into it today. I don't know what went into it back then, but it's constantly, it's like anything else. Once mistakes happen somewhere else, the newer teams start learning from it and they get better and better. But were you looking at SWAT as a way, I guess, in my mind, of going, okay, if I can get away from this nonsense where we're disproportionately enforcing in, one demographic, if I go to SWAT, I'm kind of getting away from that. Now I'm going to a unit that it's oblivious. It's just, here's a problem, we got to go solve it.
Yeah, it very much felt like the next level up. SWAT is not doesn't have to answer 911 calls. Now, they wanted us to go outside today, and the City of Atlanta Police Department has always had quotas. They'll say they don't, they do. All the command staff will tell you that we don't and never have. All of the officers will tell you that we do and always have. There's always been a quota, always, meaning that if you were not, because in the rationale behind that is that, we have to be able to objectively measure what these guys are doing all day long, every day. So how can we do that if we don't know if they're not making an arrest? So, Atlanta police used to have a rule, 1 body a week. Everybody who was in patrol was responsible, and you need to make sure that you were making 1 physical arrest, putting 1 ass in jail at least per week. And that's always been kind of a thing. When I was over at SWAT, it was 2 tickets. 2 traffic tickets that you had to write. So these guys.
So you didn't have a dedicated SWAT team? We
did. We had a dedicated SWAT team, but during the day when we were not. So this is how an average day worked.
Okay. During that way different than what mine does. Mine's a dedicated. That's all they do. If they're not doing that, they're training. Like there's no doing enforcement.
So during that time frame, it was still a dedicated SWAT team. They weren't responsible for handling 911 calls. If there was something crazy that came up or a hot call or something of that nature, of course these guys are going to go. But I'll tell you about what the average day looked like on Atlanta Police SWAT. So we get into work, whatever time it was, 8 or 9 o'clock. And the first thing that we would do is PT. So the team would PT together. Hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it happened to be. We do all of our stuff. Everybody will have all kind of new creative CrossFit shit to do all the time, because that's an important part of the job. You got to keep yourself in shape. After PT, that was, a couple hours. We'd go spend an hour getting showered up. After that, we'd hit the street and go get coffee, get something to eat. That would be for a couple of hours. So most of the day was spent doing nothing. So these guys during the day were tucked off somewhere, visiting girlfriends, managing their extra jobs on duty, whatever it is they wanted to do, running their business on duty, and then would just wait for the call. And that was it. That was for the rest. And then at the end of the day, you come and put 2 pink tickets, which were the traffic citations, on the sergeant's desk, and you've done what you needed to do for the day, as long as there wasn't a hot call that came up. And they wanted to keep it light, so that so they didn't want the SWAT officers making arrests or anything of that nature, because if they get a call and you've got somebody sitting in your back seat, you're not you know,
you can't just drop and
you're out
go.
of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did want the team writing
I love
traffic tickets.
I love that you pointed that out, that there is a quota. And
Yeah.
I make this argument all the time for
Mhm.
people. I make this against other officers who want to claim there's no quotas. Bullshit. There's not a traditional quota. Not like
Right.
there was in the 70s and 80s where you had to write so many tickets and do this, and that was actually on the board.
Yeah.
What there is just like you said, they hold your position hostage and
Yes.
say that this is job performance. If
Correct.
you want a good review, this is what we're looking for. If you want your review to be good, if you want to keep that motorcycle that you're using on duty, we expect some what do they call it? Not they won't say we expect some tickets, but accomplishments, or you know, you need to be out there working. You got to show us that you're, and they don't say it, but they say it. You know what I mean?
Oh, listen, any of our motors guys right now, and God bless them, we've got a squared away motors unit, but there's been pressure on the motors unit for years to go out and write a book or two of citations.
A
And
day.
you know, in that, you know, anybody who's in policing knows that those ticket books are that thick.
Yeah,
You know,
25 tickets usually. Yeah.
Yeah, 25, 30 tickets in the book. So, you know, and those motors guys are out writing 25, 30 tickets a day because that's what they were expected to do. So, yes, there is a quota in law enforcement, and there's still a quota in law enforcement.
Yeah.
If you look up any officer who is not made in Atlanta, and this is like this for years, I don't know if they still do this, but if you've gone too many days or weeks or whatever the way they're doing it without making an arrest, they'll put your name up on the wall of shame.
Oh,
And
really?
so, oh yeah, we have an unsat board in every precinct. Now, I don't know if they took that down because they realized the problem, because we had people get in trouble for this quote, because I think some years ago there was a news report that came out that said, oh, Atlanta's quote. So of course our command staff is going to do what they know how to do, which at that time was to lie. And I'm like, oh no, there's no quotas. We don't do that. But every officer and any supervisor who's involved knew that if you didn't make a certain number of arrests and traffic tickets, and so, but the problem is that created in time this culture of shitty cases. So people would just bring in whatever, like, oh, I can just give them a copy of charges for possession of marijuana, meet my, you know, and then that, which we all know is doing absolutely, you know, nothing to address crime for any reason whatsoever. And it's just a revenue driving service of the city, victimizing people who, you know, don't deserve it. But yeah, that's there. And that was like that in Atlanta. I've heard that was the case in a lot of departments. And that's part of one of the issues I have with policing, is that we think that the more volume, more bodies, more, you know, more arrests is going to cut down crime. And it's just kind of like, that's not the case. These officers are not trained in investigations. They're just trying to make the number.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And you can't convince me that giving a ticket to the soccer mom that's sitting in the, you know, with 3 kids in the car and one of them and an infant who's screaming its head off, that giving her a ticket for running a stop sign is doing anything to help anybody.
Yeah. Other than, you know, the pressure internally to make your numbers, to perform. And then again, exactly what you said. And I remember this even when I was a young officer, like even your own team, like, Lavigne ain't made an arrest in like 2 weeks. Like he ain't working. But then I do kind of I want to address that to the public. How does the public look at an officer? This is the shitty part, and this is going to be me cop-splaining. I'm sorry. This is just a cop-splanation. Murphy, you'll love this because my crowd has they call me out when I cop-splain. But here literally is part of the concern, and I'll keep it to a minimum. For everybody that looks at us and says, you know, why are you hiding in the bushes to go write a ticket for somebody running a stop sign? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? There's just as many people in the public that are like, why aren't you over here writing tickets? Why aren't you doing this? This officer hasn't made an arrest in a month. How is he a cop? Yeah. There's nobody to arrest. You're telling me there's nobody out there to arrest? Yeah. You know, there's cold cases you could be, you know, they don't understand the dynamics of the job, but but you're getting it from both sides. And that's the hard part. You're getting torn apart by the public because you are writing tickets, and you're getting torn apart by the public because you're not.
Right.
So then,
what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? And then when you internally are getting pressured, that the way that you're judged culturally is by the number of offenders you're putting in jail.
Yeah. And, you know, and it was really after I wound up getting kicked out of SWAT And they will tell you that it was for poor decision making and for me being a FNG, what do they call it, GDI, a goddamn individual. And
I've never
for
heard that one.
oh
I've
yeah,
heard FNG, but not
yeah,
GDI.
yeah, and for tactically unsound. And so it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. I'm the best shooter on the team, and people can back this up. Um, Definitely eager to learn, certainly making some rookie mistakes, but I was also very vocal because I'm coming from Red Dog. Like this is, and at the time I thought SWAT was the A team, but personality wise, it was, tactical guys.
Yeah.
They are a bunch of divas.
Yeah.
And but Red Dog wasn't like that. Like I was really around a lot of meat eaters on that team. And so my problem was that I went to SWAT with a Red Dog mentality. I was over there like, I want to train this. I want to carry, I wasn't doing a good job being the quiet. Yes, sir. Oh, sure. Let me sit back and be quiet. I wasn't being a good new guy. I should have been a better new guy.
Okay.
Far too outspoken, far too boisterous. And they didn't fuck with that. So they were like, we're going to get this guy out of here. So ultimately,
how long were you in before they started trying to get you out?
I think I was there the first time for about a year, and then they wound up sending me out, wound up going back to the zones. They wound up stashing me off. And anytime you want to punish an officer, you're going to put him on the graveyard shift.
Yeah.
It's
I prefer it, but yes.
Yeah. It's a punishment without punishing because transfers are not grievable.
Right.
So they took me off in zone 3 for a while, super depressed. I was super embarrassed. And just, all of this, went through that. That was the initiation for me during that time frame. I'm not talking about it now, of a terrible depression, absolutely terrible depression. I wound up going to, reaching out to supervisors, letting them know, hey, I'm having a really rough time here. And they just made it worse. They made it a whole lot worse. I started going to our employee assistance program because I was like, listen, first of all, I'm dealing with years of PTSD that was untreated because our department has never had a great mental health service or had great mental health services. Then I'm also on the other side of that now dealing with being kicked out of SWAT from a bunch of guys who had their own series of egregious violations who, excuse me, I just never spoke on. And people might ask the question, well, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you do this here? Why didn't you do that there? Why didn't you raise the flag? I think people sometimes grossly underestimate that cops need to pay their bills too.
Yeah.
And by being a whistleblower, you compromise. And I'm not saying that this is the right thing to do. I want you guys to put yourselves not in the position of a 47-year-old guy who's looking at things through the lens of 2020 hindsight, recognizing what the monster actually was, but sitting actually in the environment now, wanting to not disenfranchise the people around me, wanting to not lose my job, because I knew that they punished people who speak. You speak up about problems, you are going to be not just outcast, but you're looking at losing money. And the department doesn't have any problems with causing you to lose money. I've been suspended, lost money. When I was talking all my shit towards the end of my retirement, the city of Atlanta withheld my pension from me illegally for 10 months, just to be petty. So that's a little bit further down the line, but it's little things like that and little pieces that all add to the puzzle of why I am really kind of gravitating away from policing. So wound up leaving SWAT, went back to the zones for a little bit for the graveyard shift. Absolutely hated it. But wound up was sent back. One of the chiefs sent me back to SWAT because they were like, look, I know that you're talented. I know that you're good at what you do. I know that they sent you out of here for ridiculous, fucked up, idiotic reasons. You didn't deserve that. And they sent me back. That's why I was like, you're not gonna tell us what to do. So they wound up getting me out. And the way they did that was by rigging the SWAT school, lying to the lieutenant, giving him rules that had never applied before. I called it the Murphy rules, that had never before in 22 years applied to anybody.
Yeah.
And told him that was the way that things had always been. And so in the school, I'm a big guy. I was a big guy then. We had to do a lot of CrossFit stuff. So anybody who's over 6 feet tall knows that by the time you're doing things horizontally, gravity starts taking more of effect. So crawling on the ground and bear crawling and crab walking and monkey hopping or whatever else that other silly shit they do in CrossFit, it's harder for tall guys. Just we're stretched out more. So I'm slower. Right. and they told the lieutenant, well, there's a time frame, where there had never been a time frame. The rule for years was keep your feet moving. And as long as you don't quit, you make it through. But
Right.
the Murphy rule said he didn't make it back to the classroom by this time. So now I'm permanently kicked out of squad. So I go back, I make rank. I was like, well, nothing left to do but to make rank. I made sergeant, and that's when I really started to see the bullshit. Super duper kicked in, because now I eliminate some of the people out of my food chain. I get a chance to see what the machine is made out of.
Yeah.
And that was wild.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the chat, just seeing what everybody's talking about while we're doing it. It looks like some of the guys are talking about ghost cars and the legality of that. Let me see. Mana and Water said, it should be required that all new police officers need to have a minimum of 60 units in constitutional law and criminal law. To promote to sergeant, you must have a bachelor's degree in the same. Now, I had said in the chat, I typed it out, but I wanted to address this. Absolutely on constitutional law. I ask all of our guests this, but I want to know what you've got to say, Murph. In your entire career,
okay,
how much constitutional law training did you get after the academy?
So in terms of what was actually offered by the department, very little. Training was always hard to come across just by what they're going to give you or force you to go to. Every year, officers are required to go to in-service training, which keeps up their minimum credits for every year. And they do just like they do with any major corporation. They want to make sure that you get your segment for example, sexual harassment training, right? Because we want to be out here grabbing on booties.
Control tactics or defense.
Control tactics, use of force update. So all of the basic stuff that you kind of need to know, and that's it. But there was never an encouragement in the city of Atlanta in general to go to training. But when you're on specialized units, you will go to more training because it's required and necessary. So what do I think about that? I think that it's actually an excellent idea. I think that there are an alarming number of cops that are not well-versed in how the Fourth Amendment works, that are not well-versed in how criminal procedure works. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of guys who do the job well every day. They don't violate rights. They're not stealing from anybody. They treat people fairly. They're kind and compassionate. They're good officers, but you don't hear about them. You know what I mean? And the truth of the matter is, in the 850,000 cops in the US, or whatever it happens, whatever that number has been, we have a far smaller amount of people that are fucking up, violating the law, abusing their authority than people might know. I think that when we look up and we see these videos and all of these instances of the police beating someone up or shooting somebody or doing something of that nature, now one is too many. And I want to start by saying this. This is not to make any excuses for one police use of force. One is too many. But it is not endemic of, or it's not really a very good representation of the whole entire body. I think the police are corrupt for different reasons. Less so on the level of the officers just widespread going out violating people's rights. And that's a rough swing to make, especially now with me advocating for the abolishment of the police, with there being so many fucked up uses of forces that we have dealt with. But day to day, I can tell you that the majority of the police officers that I work with every day were good people. They're moms and dads, they're sons and daughters. They just want to go home. They want to do right. And they're working for a system and for a structure that is very fucked up. So it's kind of like, you want to pay your bills, you want to eat. How much stuff do you put up with? It's really always a juggling act all the time. But in terms of like the training, no, the officers don't get enough training unless you want to. I was one of those guys who wanted to train. So I was always taking courses, constitutional law, criminal procedure, courtroom testimony and demeanor. Hell, I flew out to New Mexico and blew up a minivan at New Mexico Tech because I was taking a course called Prevention and Response to Suicide Bombing Incidents. I wanted to go out and learn about terrorism. So, being in the special units, I was always going to train. So my training roster is pretty heavy because I wanted every weapon system you could think of, just about, except sniper. I never went to sniper school. But I took that. Subgun classes, shotguns, all of those various courses just because I enjoyed it and I wanted to be better. And being good in terms of criminal procedure was super important to me because I was a proactive officer. I was always making a buttload of arrests.
I mean, it makes sense that you would do that type of training. That's good. I mean, that's what you'd want to do if you're in those specialized units. But the thing that I've noticed through doing the show, especially all the bad cop videos that, you know, we do share on here, is it really, it isn't the big things. It's not a controversial police shooting or use of force. It's the small things, over and over.
Yeah.
It's demanding ID when you don't have a right to ID. It's the detaining somebody when you don't have the right for a detention. It's the ego stepping up when somebody calls you out for doing something wrong and you're like, well, you get your law degree in Google, you know, like, motherfucker, you ain't got a law degree either. So what are you saying?
It's fucking up the First Amendment audits. It's the treating citizens differently than you would if you were talking to your mama, your auntie, and them.
Right.
It's always a different. You're right. It's not that these guys get together every day and look to go off and. I'm sorry. I'd like this comment. By that logic, the oath of office is a formality, and that is what is the problem. Men are not willing to sacrifice it if it means risking the pocketbook. There's no honor or integrity within that stance. Truth.
Yeah,
I would have to agree with that. I've said this for years, and I'll say this again now. If the man or woman does not police in front of their badge, then they're just a walking symbol of authority that nobody wants to deal with. Right. When I would train my officers, I'd talk to these young guys and girls all the time. And I'd be like, look, when you go out to a scene, do not show up behind your badge. Your badge gives you a lot of authority, right? You can take people's freedoms away. If you have to, you can take people's lives away. You are given a wide berth of shit that you can do already. So showing up in that uniform, you are a walking representation of consequence. So most encounters that you have with people, especially depending on where you work, they might not be happy to see you coming because they're going to see that uniform first. So what do you do to work around that? When you open your mouth, before you even open your mouth, you need to look like you belong in the uniform. You know what I mean? Like these guys who didn't take good care of themselves, they're always looking flumpy and slumpy. They look like a soup sandwich. That says a lot about you. But when you show up, you got to make sure that you look like somebody can trust. And then when you open your mouth, the next thing they need to see is they need to see Joseph. They need to see Warren. They need to see Deontay. They need to see Melissa. Like show them the person. Lead with that. I've never seen a problem with leading with you, whoever you were before you put on your super suit. I bet you my instances of having problems with people dropped probably 80% once I learned how to just level with them and I always did that. I think my temper got cooler the older that I got.
Yeah.
As a young officer, a lot of us, I know I was quick to do everything, you know, a bit more impulsive, a lot less patient, less likely to do. But even still, like even then, even when I was an officer on my beat, I still knew how to treat people. It's just I had a shorter fuse for what we would consider to be the bullshit. You know?
Yeah.
As officers, I think lengthening that fuse can do us a lot of good a lot of times, because a lot of times what you're hearing from people is not aggression. They're not angry at you. They're just traumatized.
Yeah.
Think about what just happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Billfold said a cop needs to look capable or they will get shit on. 100%.
Yeah. Or beat up or worse.
Yeah. Trevor, somebody was calling out his comment. Trevor said, doesn't matter how good cops are out there when we have an internal system designed to protect the ones who do harm.
That part. Who said that? Who's that?
That was Trevor Creates.
Yeah, man. So then what do we wind up looking at, right? We use this term typically when it comes down to legal proceedings, right? But I think that it applies to law enforcement in general. The fruit of the poisonous tree, right? Can you have good cops in a fucked up system? I would even ask the chat that. Is that possible? Are there any good fruit hanging on a poisonous tree? And by poisonous tree, meaning, let's lay it out there, right? You know, policing in general, and this is kind of the next segment. If I'm skipping ahead too fast, let me know. But in a moment, I'll kind of deep dive into it a little bit more. Policing in general, anybody stupid, y'all. We know what this institution is. The policing is the evolution that started with slave catchers. It did. That's where the police department came from, altogether. And the problem that I have with the institution in general is the lack of oversight. In response to that last comment, is the lack of oversight and accountability. But it's less of a problem at the individual officers level, and certainly more of a problem at the institutional and command level. These guys are driving the issues and ignoring the things that need to be looked at and giving energy and attention to the things that don't. And the officers are just following suit because they just got this job. They just spent 20 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever your post, whatever your academy time is. Like they're protective of that because they just got this job that they have to work so hard to get. And so there's the corrupt nature of the entity now, it just does invite way too much silence. So if you have one cop that's doing bad and another cop that's being silent, yeah, you do. The answer, this, mind you, I circle back to say this doesn't excuse all of that. You've got two bad cops at that point in time. But the system is not currently set up in a way where that's ever going to be fixed. We're not going to fix the entity of policing, guys. This is something that we need to crash on the rocks. But I do have a solution. I'm not saying that we would just leave the public unprotected, but that's for the next segment. I want to get ahead of you.
All right, you good? I was like, all right, is he going now, or is he waiting to send it? All right,
I'm going to go with it. So I laid this out before. Let me quickly just wrap the whole thing up. I made sergeant in 2015. I started seeing from the supervisory level a great deal more of the corruption. And I can speak specifically to the city of Atlanta. The pressure for the quotas went way up. The doctoring of crime stats, Atlanta is good for. We always want to try to polish that turd as much as we can to make things look a little bit better, because when we're coming to talk to you in those community meetings and we send our most prim and proper guys who look the best, look at our public relations officers, look at our executive protection teams. They all look real pretty. All of them. That's where all the pretty boys go. They're the ones who talk to you, because when we show up to talk to you all, we want to make you feel good. And I think the problem with Atlanta specifically is that we spent so much time trying to make people feel good, we've gravitated away from the truth. And even gotten to the places of outright lying about a lot of stuff. But ultimately, we want to make you feel good, make sure you feel safe. You're not scared to go out to these restaurants. We want you to go into Buckhead and spend your money. And we want you to feel good about doing that. So Atlanta, as with several other departments, has dealt with issues of corruption with doctoring crime numbers. Someone breaks into a house. Oh, we can't figure out what's stolen. You've got a broken window over there, drawers pulled out all over the place. Back in the time when I came on, do you know how quickly they would turn that into a damage to property just because they can't prove that anything was stolen, so it wasn't a burglary? Ridiculous stuff. We've had officers and supervisors get in trouble for that. And in the sergeant's position, I started seeing those pressures and all that other stuff. And so I did that for about 8 years. Had a bunch of other experiences, but I was done. Wound up going viral back in 2020 in front of CNN at the George Floyd protest, because I recognized I said something to the effect of the crowd of people that were surrounding us. Hey, we understand why you're here. You have the right to be here. You have the right to be doing what you're doing. See why you're pissed off. I've got kids. I got to give them the same thing. And then next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls from the four corners of the earth saying, dude, you're on Al Jazeera. Dude, you're on Good Morning America. Because all people wanted in that moment was to know that they were going to be heard. That was kind of another hallmark of my supervisory career, I would say, because that changed a lot after I had that moment and kind of sided with the people and took a knee with the protesters and was out there talking to people on my department. They were like, man, fuck this guy. He's not with us.
Yeah.
You know, out here being woke. Half these motherfuckers don't even know what woke means. Out here or being, you know, or worse, being doing something that's dangerous, when in fact, and we discussed this the other day, when in fact we're just reading the room. What are these folk right now saying? I think if we as cops spend a little bit more time listening to people, and when I say leveling with them, meaning if they're taking a knee, I've got 30 guys with guns standing behind me and a tank right there. I can take a knee and be okay, and and feel safe here. I know that, as we were talking about like protests and stuff like that, that's not always safe in every environment and in every moment, or in every jurisdiction. I think it has a lot to do with what's happening. But in the minute that people are going through trauma, or that they're angry, or that they're riled up about something, all that they want to do is that you care about it, or that you care about what they're talking about. that often has a tendency to kind of bring temperatures way down. So that's what I tried to do. That's what I did at the protest. That's what I did throughout the rest of my time in supervision. And then I left all the way up towards the end. The corruption started getting just too heavy, too many things that were happening in the big picture of things. Oh, you found it. That is me walking with Lieutenant at the time, Tommy Atzert, Chief Erica Shields, and one of my former REDDOG brothers. And I'll just leave their names out of it because I ain't talked to them.
I was trying to find the actual picture.
That was the kneeling moment.
That was the kneeling moment right there?
Or one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, just getting people, because people were asking for it. And I didn't think that it was prudent or necessary to sit there. Because what do cops do at the protest? We're going to do one of two things. We're either going to be completely stone-faced and aloof, stand there with our robot face on, and no matter how much people yell and scream, we're just going to sit there and just stare at them as if they're not there, which doesn't make people feel good. Or worse, and I was seeing this at several of our protests, we can say fuck you without getting in trouble. So, right, excuse me, people are screaming and yelling and waving signs, justifiably pissed off. And what do? Smile, smirk, shoot looks, point and laugh. You know, nothing that's going to get us in trouble, but certainly a way to let people know that we don't give a fuck about what they're talking about. And that's what I saw at the protest. And the only thing that it was doing was making people more angry. And I remember having this moment at the time, thinking to myself, when my wife or my kids or someone who I care about is displeased or upset about something, what do I do? I remember having that thought at the moment. What do I do? What helps to bring down the temperature of that moment? So just keeping your mouth closed for a minute, maybe listening, acknowledging, validating. You don't have to agree with something that people are saying in order to validate them. So I was like, let me just try this. It works at home. And sure enough, it worked. And that works across and so that was always kind of a mantra in my career, but that was like the big moment, the world stage moment of trying it and then seeing it work. And then it worked, and it continued to work throughout the course of the protest, to the extent where we'd be in moments where people were throwing stuff. And I had guys literally, I'll send you the pictures later. At one point in the protest, I had guys coming up, standing up in front of me going, whoa, not this one, not this one.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. So you got the crowd protecting you.
Yeah. I've got a few pictures of that. It was
nice. Cool. Yeah, that's always a mark of how well you're perceived in the community, like the type of impact you're making. We have a guy that I tried to get him on the show tonight. He just had some shit going. Matt Thornton, Detective Matt Thornton. He recently retired, but he's got a little side job now.
Yeah,
and so he couldn't make it for tonight's show. But I think you and him would have a lot in common. But I talk about getting the protection from the community. He's one of those. Like he is just that community is not going to let you fuck with him. Period. No. He's just got that relationship. You're just not going to mess with him.
If people trust you, they'll speak up for you. And I think that's all that people want. They want to be able to trust their law enforcement. And that brings me around full circle as to why I have been advocating, because I know you said that you had seen my video. That kind of comes back to the meat of why we're here, is that I made a video on my social media page not long ago that said, we don't need the police anymore. We need to abolish the police altogether, right? And that lit a big fire. So far, I think I've got like maybe 150 something thousand views, people with a lot of opinions that are liking and appreciating what I talk, because I went back and explained it, and I made some other videos that were explaining it. But I said, listen, guys, the problem with your police department that you don't know about is that people will typically show up. Like as a supervisor, I used to have to go to community meetings, right? And at the community meeting, we would sit around for a while and listen to everybody talk about everything that we are doing wrong. So as a sergeant, you're sitting down in this meeting and you've got to hear, we've got this, we've had 3 break-ins over here, somebody stole my kid's bike, we've had problems with people wandering around in the streets, kids hanging on the corner. You got to hear all of the laundry list of issues. And then every community meeting, every month, every time, you'll have that sergeant, whoever was forced to go, because nobody wants to go, who's forced to go, who's going to be like, okay, these are the crime stats. Let me take down all of your all your grievances, everything that you, and then I'll make sure to let the major know, we're doing our best. Well, all of this crime is happening over here. Well, we made 14 arrests on this beat in the last 12 days, as if that's supposed to, satisfy folks.
Change something.
Who are sitting here looking at very real problems. And it's just not the case. So the truth of the matter is, now we're sitting here upset with individual officers and supervisors where the problem is bigger. We have issues that just have not ever really changed specifically. I'll use Atlanta specifically. Atlanta's predominantly Black city. We, as I said before, we see Black crime with Black folks. We see white crime with white folks. We see Indian crime with Indian. Like, people have a tendency to, who are criminal elements in their, wherever they are, will stick where they are. Mm-hmm. People will prey upon people who look like them. So Atlanta is like a predominantly Black city. That's the kind of crime that we're happening there. The kind of crimes that we're experiencing are a lot of times Black on Black crimes. But the problem is that in a Black city, especially one with the history and the background of Atlanta is a civil rights hub of America, y'all. This is where Ebenezer Baptist Church is. Like, Atlanta has got significant history and has got a nasty history with the police, and so they've been working real hard over the years to pick up their image. You go on their page now, and they're always doing some goofy dance, or you'll have the chief up there going, "Peace up, A-Town," like whatever we can do to show, look, we're more relatable by jumping on social media trends instead of changing the direction of the ship, or before doing that, bringing them into a dock, getting rid of all the rotten wood, evicting all the rats, firing your fucked up staff, making sure that the ones that are riding around on the boat masquerading as crewmen are actually pirates, getting rid of them. The ship needs to just crash on the rocks, and we need to start all the way over, guys. The corruption in policing goes just far too deep, unfortunately. And I'll say just in general, and I feel like the background and the history of it being, like I said, being the descendants of slave catchers, disproportionately policing in the Black community, which we very much, I told y'all, we still do in the city of Atlanta to this day. If anybody's interested to go and look at the crime stats, the numbers of drug arrests that are made in zone 1, which is, or like, let's say zone 4, or the west side of the town where more of the Black folk lives, are nowhere close to the drug arrests up on the north side where the white folks lives. And so the obvious thing would be to be like, well, the drugs aren't up there. Really? Anybody who's around the city knows that that's not the case. We just don't do it. So the reason why I believe that we need to abolish policing in the big picture is because of the overall lack of accountability. Your police chief, wherever you are, is accountable to one person. So let's say an officer does something fucked up. Let's say an officer has a bad shoot, and the public watches it. What is the command staff they're going to do? They're going to be like, well, let's not jump to conclusions. We need to do a thorough investigation, then we'll come back and let you know. But at the end of the day, if they decide to botch that investigation, and they do botch investigations, I just made a video the other day about our Atlanta Police SWAT team knocking out a guy's eyeball, and the whole team got away with it after our internal affairs found them sustained of completely not only violating this guy's civil rights, but committing aggravated battery. They beat this guy's eyeball out of his head. And all of this is documented. Anybody who wants to go and do an open records request, it was in 2012 on Sunset Avenue. The Atlanta Police SWAT team went up, and they had some barricaded guys up in an attic, went up to the attic. They said the guy fought with them and took that opportunity to use their rifle to hit this guy so hard it knocked his eyeball out of his head. The command, our internal affairs got the investigation. They said, whoa, this is bad. You all statements are fucked up. You all's actions were fucked up. This is bad. This needs to be sent over to the district attorney's office. What the city of Atlanta did instead was they said, ugh, we can't afford to lose our whole SWAT team. That would look bad. Let's just make sure this gets adjudicated quickly. So nothing in Fulton County, where the city of Atlanta is, goes to court and gets sentenced quick. People have open cases from crazy offenses that go back years and years and years and years and years. This thing gets adjudicated in like 6 months. This guy, and I don't know this for sure, but if I had to assume, probably quietly got a payout because the command staff took a look at the internal affairs complaint and said, wow, this is horrible. This is going to make us look bad. we're going to call it not sustained. Basically, against the recommendations of every investigative entity in OPS, including their major, who said, yeah, these guys are going down the pipe for this. And so it was stuff like that where they would turn it around. Now these guys are not in trouble. We can kick this guy a little bit of money. He goes off to jail and does his time, and then the public never finds out about it. Those things happen way more frequently than people recognize. And there's no accountability because all the chief has to do is go to the mayor, and if they're in cahoots, and they can just say, well, hey, buddy, you good with this? Yeah, I'm good with that. And then it's over. That's it. There's no accountability. So people are in these streets angry and they're upset and they're protesting and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, you've got a 2-person chain that was making all these decisions for everybody, 2 people. Not so with a sheriff's department. And this is the positioning where I am, is that I'm not suggesting that we leave our communities unprotected, uncovered, and unserviced. That would be irresponsible. And
Hold on. I want people to see something.
Go for it.
I went to your page, right? I went to your Instagram page. And this is where we met. I didn't even realize we met approximately 4 weeks ago, according to Instagram. And I had saw your video.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna just play it. We'll give you another view here.
Yeah, please.
So you guys can see it.
This needs to be abolished.
Biden referred to police as the enemy and vilified them as an oppressive racist force.
What I'm charged with doing every day is making sure I keep white folk comfortable.
Well, over there, they don't feel the same way.
That's why I told them to shut the fuck up.
There we go.
There's no more use for cops anymore. What do we need them for at this point in time? Yeah, and mind you, this is coming from a person with 20 years with the City of Atlanta Police Department. You all know I was Zone 6 and REDDOG and SWAT and gangs and all of the zones except for Zone 2. I got a chance to do plainclothes work, so I've been around the way. Everybody who's been around the city a little bit knows me and has their opinions. Y'all will hear about all of them soon, because when this documentary comes out, woo boy, all of those folks are gonna be pissed as fuck. Now, ask me if your boy gives a fuck about that. Y'all know that I do not, because I say what I say with purpose and meaning. They revamped their entire mental health program after they thought I was crazy, and I posted all those wild videos. So I'm going to say this, and I want you to hear me good. We don't need the police anymore. We don't need them. We don't. Why? Even your City of Atlanta Police Department right now, spending time actively victimizing black folks right now in our own communities by doing what? You think just because you're not taking niggas to jail no more for possession of marijuana, that those copies of charges aren't harmful? And you're not even issuing them like that up in Buckhead, where all those executives are using cocaine. You're not even issuing up there in Zone 2, where all of those people are running hard drugs through the nightclubs. Y'all aren't enforcing shit like that. You know you're not. These words are not going to fall to the ground, because I told y'all, I warned you all that we needed to make some changes. Y'all didn't want to hear what the fuck I was talking about then. And that's quite all right. But I will tell you this, policing needs to end. Now, I need to share one thing. There is a caveat. Policing needs.
So, got that part. I know you guys you probably can't quite see it just because of the resolution, but I see that. This is my first impression of him. And if you're looking, it's REDDOG_Murph, if you're looking for his Instagram handle. So I see that, and the first instinct I have, because he doesn't fully explain, I'm like, well, they tried that in Chaz, remember? And that was my comment. And so he actually hits me back up pretty quickly and is like, there's an alternative, my friend. I'd never leave us hanging with no law enforcement. And I said, I gotcha. And I just said, I got to say, I like what I hear from your content. Been in it 20 years, still going. And he said, I appreciate that. And be safe, fam. And so that is how we kicked off. And then we just kind of grew from there. So I liked that. And I liked that, I was poking because I wasn't sure what you meant. So I was like, well, we did try to do no police at all, and that did not fucking work.
No police at all doesn't work, and it's not for people who are. I don't get me wrong. I understand the people who are on their just abolish law enforcement altogether tip, because we have to look at the harm versus the benefit. Not the police have not always been a force of good and they haven't been people that people were looking forward to seeing based upon the community that you're going to be in, and so I think it's important to give context and give credence to the fact that the people who are not for the police have reason to feel that way. But the truth of the matter is that there are still predators out here. And this is a follow-up video that I made too. There's a lot of predators running around here, a bunch. And those predators will kill you. They'll sexually assault you. They'll take your kid. They'll kidnap, they'll steal your car. We got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so the idea of this turning into this vigilante system and this community handling all of its own problems doesn't work out. And we haven't seen any evidence of that working out. But one of the things that I think will work is an elected sheriff. The elected sheriff, guys, you all choose who is going to represent you. Think about this. You live in a community, right, where there are very specific needs to that community. Every community is going to have different needs. So we can't expect for the police to be the same in Atlanta as they are in, let's say, Maricopa County. Think about Joe Arpaio as an example, right? Think what you want to about him. And I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he's done over the years, but his community loved him because he was there for, what was it, like 30-something years, 30-something, 35 years?
Was he really?
Yeah. This was in Maricopa County, Arizona. He was the sheriff who used to put the prisoners in pink underwear. Yeah.
Yes.
You remember that guy?
Yes, I do.
They loved him. They loved him. He was there so crime was low. Their particular jail had a 6% recidivism rate. And I think at the end of the day, that people should be allowed to have what is important to them. And I think that they should have a law enforcement agency that's tailored to them, that's tailored to the needs of their community specifically, and that there would have a sheriff who is somebody who is from among them, somebody who they know, somebody who they trust, somebody who has a good reputation of being honest, of being courageous, of being willing to challenge things that are fucked up or wrong, and just what we would consider to be somebody from around the way who comes from us that we put in position to say, hey, we want you to represent our interests, to keep us safe, under the caveat of, but if you don't do your job, if you're not representing our best interest, then you're fired.
Yeah, we remove you.
We just remove you. There's no city council to go through. There's no legislative panel. There's no mayor that has to be like, oh, there's none of that. The police system, the policing is operating under a two-man system in every city where you are. And every cop that I know that has been around for at least 10, 15 to 20 years has a story of having to sit under either a corrupt or messed up or soulless or some leadership or mayor or chief that either didn't have any nuts, wasn't, an upstanding person. Like, everybody's had that experience. And so my positioning is that people shouldn't have to put up with that. If we have a sheriff, we know where he comes from because we chose him. And if he's not representing our interests, if he's not keeping us safe, if he's not getting rid of the bad elements, because, as a young person, you can sit back and be like, man, fuck the police. That is all this other stuff. As a homeowner, I want the police coming. If somebody out here breaking in cars, I want them coming. Like, you can call me a sellout, you call me whatever you want. Anybody who owns I don't know a lot of homeowners that or business owners or people who like need that collaboration to be effective and working, who have tremendous problems with the police to the positioning where they're just like, fuck them, I don't want them around. No, I'm too old. I'm not trying to fight you. Like, you doing something crazy, I'm like, hey, somebody come get this guy.
You
call it off code. That's just that's what you get for being a homeowner.
So Kingslayer dropped $5 in the super chat, and he said, watch any other police podcast and see how often they say cut them a check, move on, and minimize it just as a few bad apples. That's the mentality.
That is the mentality. And, a few bad apples spoil the bunch. They say this for a reason. You know what I mean? Let me ask you this. If I were to give you a glass of water, how much piss can I put in it before you don't want to drink it?
Any little bit, sir. Well, because it's you, maybe just a little drop, just so
right. And so the mentality of a few bad apples spoil the bunch is true. That doesn't mean that every individual is the devil. that doesn't mean that every single cop is going on and cloaking themselves in their black mask and ready to hit the streets with, predicated by the evil. I can't wait to go out here and just fuck somebody's day up. I don't know any guys like that.
That's a good Skeletor you did there.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the Skeletor runoff is
yeah.
I grew up on He-Man, but we didn't know guys like that, and not in general. I take that back. I have known a few guys like that, and they didn't last long.
Yeah, they tend to weed themselves out. Anybody that is actually like a fucking crazy dude, like they weed themselves out pretty well.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, y'all, I want you to make sure you hear me. Let me get real close to the camera. The police and military are harder on each other than anybody else. Now, again, not to the extent where we've been able to eliminate corruption. We haven't been able to do that. But be out on a scene and be talking crazy to somebody. There's going to be somebody, usually. And if there's not, then that just goes back to my original point. You've got an entirely fucked up department. But from my experience, typically, if we get somebody who's getting out of pocket or making my job more difficult, because we all know that one guy who can rile up any situation.
Yeah. Show up to your scene, you're like, no, you're good.
Everything was fine. Next thing you know, you're talking shit to people, disrespecting folks' grandmas, not letting folks, talk through the window to the person under arrest.
Yeah, they're not breaking the law. They're not violating anybody's rights. They have no emotional intelligence and no social skills, and they get the scene riled back up. And the next thing you know, you're in a use of force.
Correct. Or riled up from nothing at all, just because you didn't have any patience and don't want to, people don't want to see us. You have to remember that when it comes down to dealing with the police, most of the encounters that I had and most conversations I had were with people who didn't want to see me. Right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, today I want to talk to an officer just because I'm bored. Like if they're seeing me, something wrong happened. So that whole encounter is already predicated by fuckery somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so once we get there, and when I say we, the police, because I'm still including that, and that was my career for the whole, for that period of time, is that you have a lot of decisions to make in terms of how you're going to manage the temperature of those folks. And like you said, if you've got no emotional intelligence, you're going to get people all riled up. Absolutely. They're going to say the wrong thing. They're going to say something insensitive. They're going to deal with somebody who's mad or grieving or traumatized with a shorthand version of communication, whereas more explanation would have saved them a complaint, because ego is a problem. And at the end of the day, we've got body-worn cameras now, but have body-worn cameras, it seems to me, if anything, since we have had the body-worn cameras, we seem to be having a few more shootings lately. You know what I mean? So it doesn't stop the bad behaviors whatsoever. The issue is that when these things happen, we've got fucked up departments that'll be like, we're okay. They'll handle things administratively when they should have been handling criminally. Yeah. Our Atlanta Police SWAT team should have been brought up on charges for aggravated battery, but they didn't do that because the administration. This guy lost an eyeball. That should have been investigated by the DA's office.
He's got another one.
Not our OPS.
He's got another one. He'll be all right.
Yeah, right. Just living in Cyclops.
Our guy had a good comment. He said, a cop shouldn't be able to give a homeless man a shit sandwich and then get hired somewhere else to be the police chief. That happened.
That did. I think I remember seeing something about that.
Yeah.
I think that guy probably would have been better off sitting in a jail cell for a period of time.
I put so I kind of branched off of what I do to make these, like, I call them like a mid-level length video. It's like 8 to 15 minutes long. And I call it the gray area. And it's basically kind of addressing like two sides of a really hard issue to talk about, like defunding police. You know, you got the cop side that looks at that and they're like, oh, you guys are full of shit. There's no reason you should be defunding the police. When you've got the community side, if you actually took the time as a cop to listen to their perspective, they're basically reached a point where they have no other way to get you to listen to them other than leveraging the money that you keep asking for and trying to get increased every year. Yeah. And here they are, they've seen no change. So like I kind of talk about both sides of a real, controversial topic. Well, one that I brought up in one of these gray area videos is the Ronin cop or the gypsy cops, whatever you want to call them. The ones that before they get fired or before maybe even a criminal investigation occurs, they resign in lieu of termination.
Right.
And then that investigation stops. And then they never find out if there was a criminal act or anything like that because the cop left, and somehow they get hired at another department. And that's exactly what happened with this guy that they're talking about. He had done some poop. He had like a fucking fetish for poo. Like he did a poo prank at work, did another one at work that ended up getting him fired. And then he had gave a shit sandwich to a homeless guy. And then he ends up being a chief. Of course, it's a small town ass fucking department. But the point being is like, how the fuck do we not have a national? And this was my point in the video. We need a national registry that if you've applied for a police department, you enter the registry.
Yeah.
Just by applying. Yeah. Because it's important for me to know. Do you remember the Sonia Massey case, the boiling water?
Oh, yes.
I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, boo. And
yes.
Shoot your fucking head.
Yeah.
So, by the way, that asshole.
One of the worst ever, by the way.
Yeah. That asshole's got literally asshole
cancer.
Yeah. He's got stage 4. And he tried to get released from prison early just so he could go die. And the judge was like, no.
Fuck him. Rest in peace. Yeah. You won't be missed.
Nah, fam. You good where you're at.
We don't know.
So, anyway, my point being is that guy in particular had been to 6 departments in 4 years. 6 departments in 4 years. That is a huge red flag. Yeah. And he had been written up for some stuff in the Army as well. Again, all this stuff in lieu, of he resigned in lieu of termination or whatever it may be. Right. We need to have a registry. This registry, as much as it can help weed out bad cops, like I think that's awesome, right? If you apply to 18 departments, let's say you've never been a cop, but you apply to 18 departments until finally the 19th hires you. Me as an agency and a background check investigator, I'm going to call all 18 agencies and say, why didn't you hire this guy? Some may say, well, we've got a big pool and he wasn't even close. Or you may hit one. They're like, well, look at his background here. Like we noticed this. Yeah. And that's a big red flag. And they're like, oh shit. Okay. So all these departments may have noticed that thing. And they're like, we're just not going to risk it. To where number 19, if they did see that and they said, you know what, we're still going to hire him. Well, now you're starting to build a case of like, okay, the cop isn't just the problem. The department is also a problem because they're neglecting these checks. Right. But then also you can help officers to get screwed internally to some political witch hunt. Yeah. Because part of my registry is if you are ever investigated, one, that investigation must be completed, even if that person leaves. Yeah. So the investigation needs to be completed, and that's got to be held on file, and that goes to the registry. 2, if you are witch hunted for political reasons that really wasn't your fault, where they were just coming after you, kind of like you faced in SWAT and stuff like that, this check can exonerate you because the department's going to be able to see through a bullshit investigation. Right. And they're going to be like, oh, yeah, look, yeah, they were going after you. This doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. And so holds up to that. But I think that is a valid point about, these shit sandwich, these Ronin cops and these people going all over the place. You want to help accountability and policing, and it's got to start with the hiring process. Right. And people need to see instances of the police being held actually accountable. Like, oh, sure, since we've had body cameras, we're seeing more guys going to jail for committing egregious crimes. But what about all these smaller matters that are happening on a daily basis? Yeah. Whereas the officer probably should have been referred to a district attorney's office for review, or at least some more severe administrative things. Cops recognize, and especially with these days, a lot of people are not rushing to turn in applications to be the police. Like, hey, I want to sign up to be a part of the enemy or be a part of this oppressive force. Like, police are on the ropes right now. And I feel like this, again, that circles back to my original point a little bit, but it's like, it's not without good reason why they feel like this. We're not just seeing all these one-offs. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the issues that we're seeing are really, really relevant and endemic of a larger problem
of a lack of overall accountability. We see it with the flock cameras. We can use like, and this is I know something that you've got some vested interest in terms of the overall like accountability. And I agree with you. People are like, oh yeah, it's Big Brother. It is Big Brother. But when it comes down to the police officers using it, there is a record. The city of Atlanta now has something like 150 instances of officers, and I want to say 150 officers.
Yeah,
150 individual officers who are suspected of violating the policy for the flock camera. What does that mean? Basically, using these cameras to go and check up on ex-girlfriends or current girlfriends, boyfriends, or suspected cheating scenarios. Right? They're using it for their own personal interests. And those guys need to get, they don't need to get reprimanded. They don't need to get a suspension or something like that. These are not the people that we need to have representing us. But I promise you, and I watched one of your deputy chiefs the other day, who's actually one of my former classmates, get up on, or one of my classmates in the academy, one of the city councilmen was asking him, well, what's happening? Are there flock camera violations? Well, we're investigating. That gave the most polished turd you have ever seen in your life that didn't answer his questions at all. Yeah. And so poorly done, Chief Smith. I'll say that's all over social media if you guys want to find it. He did respond back to it, but didn't say anything. And I think we're kind of living in an age now where we're seeing leadership not having to give an account for anything fucked up that's happening. And so people are kind of getting used to that. But that was an abysmal response. Like, yes, we have been flagged. I think the right response is, yes, we have noticed that there are this many 150 officers who are suspected of doing this. We're currently looking into each instance. And as soon as we figure out that they violated their duty, there's going to be significant punishments that come down. That's what helps people to hear accountability. Like, oh, well, we'll see. We don't know, but it's just an open investigation. That's not good enough.
Yeah, that's I saw our guy saying start charging them with treason. Treason doesn't fit. There's actually a specific crime for that, guys. It's under violating rights under the color of law. That is the specific crime that you're actually looking for. Treason, if you look up the definition of treason, it just doesn't fit. I understand what you're trying to say. It doesn't fit.
It's a treasonous act, but it does not fit any type of legal definition of what we're looking at. So those don't align. I see where they're going, but that's
I agree. I see where you're going with it. It just there's already a punishment or a crime that fits that, a law for it, and it's just not the same thing. And I kind of shared with you before. I've shared with some people. I'm trying to get it to be kind of a more popular opinion. Is like, look, I don't have a dog in the hunt. I can't change whether or not flock cameras or LPR cameras can be used. They can be. Right now, they can be.
Yeah.
So if they can be used, my position is look instead of looking at it as a Big Brother tool, look at it as the best filtration system we've ever had to get rid of corrupt cops. And I think if you look at it in that way, it's kind of a cool concept. It's a cool perspective because people have been complaining for so long, and we've already had the discussion earlier on the show that we want good cops to call out bad cops. Yeah. Well, guess what? Now you've got a third-party, non-biased system that it doesn't give a shit. The moment you do something inappropriate with the system, it flags it. And it puts it on a log that it can't be buried. It's open for a FOIA investigation, and there's accountability to the auditor that finds it. Because if he doesn't report it, it's going to report him too. So you've got a dual overlapping system that's going to screw. Like, why do we have 150 cops being charged? Because that's what's happening. I went down the list. Yeah, I went down the list earlier today on my earlier podcast, but I'm going to do it again for those that weren't on that show. So somebody actually had chimed up, and they're like, yeah, they're getting in trouble for it, or they're getting busted misusing it, but nothing's happening. There's no accountability. Oh, really? Oh, really, fool? That's not true, because your boy, since August 14th, has started to keep a list. So I am going to go down this list, and I'm going to name the officers, and then I am going to name the department, and then I'm going to go down the list of offenses that we have. So this is just since August 14th, y'all. Titiana Davis, Jay Jackson, Nicholas Richardson, Brittany Smith, Isaac Wittes. Some of these names I'm going to butcher. I apologize. Tony Sierra Lewis, Kazavinian Stubbs, Joseph Calloway, Deputy Quenisha Goss, Sergeant Karubu Salawu, Patrick Isbell, Deputy Cynthia Jodeci, Lieutenant Chris Bryant, Sergeant Mike Creedon, Major Brandon Sellers, Deputy Christian Brewer, Investigator Curtis Hopkins, Lieutenant John McKenzie, Deputy Joshua Johnson, former Deputy Jaquarius Yarborough, Chris Roser, Tracy Royston, Investigator Andre Wright, Chief Michael Steffman, Detective Brandy Almy, Christopher Goodson, Jeramus Brown, Cody Hall, Elizabeth Snowman, Seth Elliott, Christian Morales, Josu Ayala, Detective Tarangi Chapman, William Kopp, ironic, Deputy Alexander Vanny, Robert Joseph, Lieutenant Victor Heyer, Roberto Sedona, Zachary Gauthier, Latasha Moore, Michelle Burling, Russell Kenton. Okay. South Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Kansas, California, Illinois, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, and then all the rest, Georgia. And when we really get down to brass tacks, here's what they were charged with, because you wanted to know the charges. So we have got misuse of license plate data. That is a actual offense in Georgia, a misuse of license plate reader system, misuse of automated license plate recognition systems, violation of oath of office, violation of oath of public officer, computer invasion privacy, stalking family violence, harassing communications, official misconduct, offense against users of computers, computer system, computer networks, and electronic devices, misconduct in office, act in access of lawful authority, unlawful acts concerning computers. These are all of the charges that have gone. Like I said, I have a vested interest in this. I am paying attention, and I'm going to call out the bullshit when I see it.
Yeah.
This right here, y'all, I just went down a quick list. This is only the stuff that's made the news by
this month.
This month that's made the news. I have not even gotten into the list of I've got another list here that is just as long of things that are pending. It's just pending in the investigation. Do you think that they're going to get charged as well? Because I do. Why?
I don't think that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, why are they going to get charged? Because you can't hide the document. You cannot. This is not something you can sweep under the rug. It is there. It is verifiable. You can't get away from it. All of the FOIA requests, it doesn't matter. Again, the reason why it's kind of different is because it is a third party. This isn't police kept info. This is a third party vendor, being Flock, and their system that the department is using. So even if that department somehow magically makes it disappear, guess who has the record? Flock. And Flock cannot afford to be looking out for police right now. They're not going to do it.
They shouldn't. And I can tell you, and this is my strong suspicion, is that the city of Atlanta, because they have a proclivity to do this, is going to do their best. And this is just my prediction, that they are going to do their best to keep this administrative. We're always forever hurting for officers. The city of Atlanta is always, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough cops. That's why they're always ramping up recruiting efforts, making all these corny videos and all this other stuff. My prediction is that you will see very few charges for violation of oath of office. I think you will see very few charges for misuse of a camera monitoring system. That's a law enforcement resource, whatever that charge is in Georgia. I don't know. I've been gone since that's been a thing. You will see this. My prediction is that you'll see this handled administratively, and those people who are violating the law will not have criminal consequences or accountability. That's my, because trust and believe, Atlanta is watching this now. They're going to have to try to figure out a way around this. The command staff, they're going to start shucking and jiving soon to figure out a way around it. My challenge to the department is to make sure that we are charging those officers who've been abusing that system criminally, the same way you should have charged the SWAT team, or at least forwarded that over to the DA's office. And for all these other instances of corruption within policing, that they need not be handled from an administrative standpoint, but rather a criminal one, because
Yeah.
when officers break the law, they're just going to keep doing it if nobody's ass is roasting over the fire. That's just the truth.
K-Palm said that me reading that was like a Key and Peele skit.
Reading which one?
It's where is it at? He goes, I feel like this is that Key and Peele skit where he's like, Sergeant A.A. Ron. Because I'm reading names wrong.
Yeah.
But Lacey had a good question. And I happen to have the insight to be able to answer this. I think I'm right, but I don't 100% know. So I'll own that. Why, and I'll read your question out loud because people will listen to this episode later just on the audio. Why, in the case of one cop who misused the flock system 717 times, is only charged with 1 count? Here is a possible explanation. The camera itself is connected to a network. This is what is Flock's claim to fame, is like you have a network of, it's flocking together. All the departments, computers and stuff, their cameras can talk to each other. So if I'm watching a homicide suspect's plate and I share information with Atlanta and he passes an Atlanta camera, it's going to let me know, hey, he just passed in Atlanta. So if I make an entry into, like if I'm stalking my ex-girlfriend and I make that entry into Flock, if I share with 717 networks, meaning 717 other departments, it's going to look like 717 entries versus me entering something in 717 times. I don't believe for a minute that this person made 717 individual entries. I could be wrong, but that's less likely. And that they looked at the network count and they're like, oh, 717 times they used this, when in reality it was probably 1 entry that hit 717 networks. So they realized that and they're like, well, we're going to give them 1 count because they only did it 1 time. It's no different than if you have a stolen credit card and you get online and you order $5,000 worth of stuff on Amazon. It's really only 1 count. But if I go to the store and to the mall and I swipe at Kohl's and I swipe at JCPenney and I swipe at Sears and I only get $400 worth of things, it's a higher count because I just swiped that card 4 times individually.
Yeah.
It's a bullshit semantics in the thing, but it's individual swipes of the credit card versus the total amount.
And they do look at it a lot of times with, aligning number of counts or number of charges with number of victims. So, like how many times did this offense affect someone?
Marine blood, 700 entries would be some serious dedication.
Look, these guys want to keep up with their exes, man. I don't care. I don't know. I don't know.
They say crazy's crazy. If it is
Crazy's
an
crazy.
ex-stalking thing, I 100%. I have seen a phone of a lady that was abused. It was a domestic survivor. Legit 3,000 plus voicemails from crazy ex. 3,000.
Somebody probably should have done something about that. That's wild.
Crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Well, the hard part, he was in another state. That's what we was dealing with. She had got away, came to us, and then she's like, he found me. And we're like, how do you know he found you? 3,000 fucking messages. He knows where I'm at. He got my number.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we was like, okay, we got to get you to our safe haven. Let's go.
Yeah.
And let's
get
the
like
paperwork
a
ready.
dog, an alarm, and a new gun.
Yeah. Lacey said they have to list a reason for each search. Yes, they're supposed to. But that's what I'm getting at as well, is the accountability side with the software has to improve. But the auditing system, if you don't list a reason, it flags you. You're flagged. That's what's awesome about this new auditing system. I'm telling y'all, you wanted accountability for police. They just invented it. Just happened 4 months ago. That's why it's all hitting the media now, because the investigations are catching up.
Yeah.
And police departments realize they can't sweep it under the rug. It's not the political pressure. It's just the data. You can't hide it. Harrison Brock, well, he's probably not in the, I think he went to bed, but Harrison is one of our computer engineer, guru guys. And he will tell you, he's not a cop. And he'll be like, yeah, you can't hide that data. And that's why so many people are getting busted and charged. So you have an amazing tool for filtering bad cops. I want to embrace it while we have it for as long as we can. because this is what my prediction. You made a prediction earlier, Murph. So I'm going to make a prediction now too.
Yeah.
Other investigative tools such as Clear, TLO, First Two, Leads Online, Accurate, like facial rec stuff, cobwebs, all of these very invasive investigative tools.
Yeah.
They are going to create their own AI auditing system, just like Flock has. And all of this stuff you see is going to exponentially compound. It's going to get way worse before it gets better. And it's going to be, you said, put the ship against the rocks. That's kind of what this is. It's a digital boat that is just going to decimate against these vendor rocks of this auditing. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
And it's for the better.
Yeah, and let's look at the big picture and really, give a minute to validate people's concerns, right? What we are looking at is the irritation of sitting under Big Brother, the nanny state, that is tracking your movements and every place you drive. We've got a record now of all of your places where you've been going, versus the efficacy of being able to find a missing kid who was just kidnapped, or a carjacked vehicle, or a bank robber, or something else where someone caused significant harm, and we need to be able to track them. Your stolen car now coming in and out of the same apartment community. So again, the problem is that the people don't have any say-so. What they do is they have guys like you and me who can sit back. They've got retired guys like me that can sit back and be like, hey, this is how I feel about this. I think this is good or bad. We've got guys like you who have a lot of vested input and research and energy into actually affecting policy, and then you've got your average person who is just riding around, who is going to be driving past these cameras every day, and we've got their opinions. And I think that is the balance, right? The presence of the nanny state and knowing more about you and all this other stuff. Like, even when I get those updates on my phone, like on my app, where it's just like, will you allow this app to track your activity? Fuck no.
Yeah, right.
I'm saying? Like,
Apple is so good about that. They're one of the few companies that, like, they try to stop everybody from being able to see your personal stuff for the most part.
And so nobody wants to be supervised and monitored all the time. And so again, I think that's why you have to make sure that you, as a citizen, are advocating to have accountability in your law enforcement, not just on the other side of things, meaning not just when we discover that there's been some fuck ups and the officers have been abusing the system, but on the front end, basically, that says, hey, we have say-so as to who we put into these positions. Like, how are we even vetting these people? There's no say-so in policing. You all who are sitting under police departments have zero say-so whatsoever. It's the type of police that you're going to get. None.
Yeah.
Or as to who gets fired. We've all seen investigations from beginning to end where the officers should have gotten more discipline than they did. And then it never happened. It just never came around because the officers, the department either handled it administratively, gave them a slap on the wrist and put them out on the street, gave them a little suspension, when in fact, some of these people should have been sitting in a jail.
Yeah. Yep. Mana and Water said, total ALPR misuse cases, over 60 law enforcement officers have been formally accused, charged, or convicted of misusing license plate readers. Yeah. So, Tim, he didn't like my comment. Listen, I'm under no delusion that Apple still is tracking stuff for their own benefit, but they do a very good job at keeping other people from tracking on their iPhones, or at least giving you the option to opt out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim. Apple sucks, but I still have it.
Yeah, I know, right? I still get
all my Apple products are glitching. I'm just glad my MacBook is working so I can do this now.
Yeah. So I want to kind of dive a little bit into, you're retired now. You're out here making waves. We're going to try. For sure, just because you and I talk so naturally together and we talk very well on the phone while we were bullshitting, I plan to have you on more regularly if you're willing. But
for sure, man, this is good.
Your internet connection has surprised me. I thought that was going to be the big hang up. But you are in Vietnam.
I'm in Vietnam, man. Left the United States Huh?
We said, what the fuck? Why? Why Vietnam? All the places. You're just like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Vietnam. Let's go.
Yeah, so y'all are gonna laugh at the reason why. So I was taking my wife to get her nails done, and this sounds just like the beginning of the most stereotypical worst story ever. But took my wife to get her nails done, and we're sitting in the nail salon. I think it was up in Gwinnett someplace, and there's a lady named Miss Lely who was just so extraordinarily kind. And I had not been like actively around a lot of like Vietnamese people or the culture for quite some time. And so now I grew up around a lot of Vietnamese because I went to a school that had international exchange students. So when I was a little boy, I had a very close friend named Thuy Tran. It was a little girl who used to be in class with me. She rode the bus. She spoke limited, she didn't speak a lot of English, but I made friends with her, one, because I thought she was so cute, but also just because she was such a sweetheart, and we used to ride next to each other on the bus as well. And so, throughout school, I knew I'd run across Vietnamese folks, but all of them were just so incredibly, like, I noticed that there was something about that culture that was just very, very attractive to me in terms of like, I want to sit down and talk to these folks. I want to be around them. So anyway, we're sitting in adulthood. I'm retired. Me and my wife are about to go and look at traveling the world and visiting places. So we made a pit stop. We lived in Costa Rica for a little bit. We came here because of that experience in the nail salon. And I think Miss Lee or Lily, I have to remember her name, was just so effusive about, oh, you've got to visit Vietnam. You'll have such an amazing time. You'll have a great time. The culture. And she and her niece and the other lady who were working in there were just so sweet and kind. I was like, I mean, this has really been my experience across the board. Yeah, let's check in and see, and I got here and I was like, oh my gosh, these are the best human beings on the planet. They're kind, their way that they just kind of communicate with each other. Like the Vietnamese just have such an amazing culture of kindness and respect. Like every time I've been out in public and found myself, because, as a foreigner and as an expat, something's going to go wrong. You're going to get lost. Your motorbike's going to catch a flat tire. Something's going to happen. The few instances that I've had where I've been just kind of out in the city and like I caught a flat on my motorbike. I had some kids pull up on me at the gas station, put me up on the back of this motorbike. Some 120-pound guy put me up on the back of his motorbike, put his buddy on my bike with a flat tire, and then did all of that, balance my big ass on the back, and use his foot to push my flat tire motorbike all the way to the shop, like 2 or 3 miles. And when I got there, I'm pulling out my wallet. I'm trying to offer him some money. He wouldn't take it. He's like, no. This is free. This is for you. And it's just been, everybody's been like that.
Now, when you were riding on the bike with him, were you holding him and having your head up against him?
I had my nose up against his neck and I wrapped my arms around his side, and I just felt
like a big teddy bear.
Like a big teddy bear. I felt so safe. No, I was actually sitting behind him, being very cognizant of not looking like I was riding bitch and holding on to the side, holding on to balance, because I can't make too much contact with this guy because my male ego won't allow me to, even though everybody rides like that. Right. I still had a lot of America to sort.
The Alabama black snake was right up against his hindquarter, wasn't it?
Just laid right up on his back, bro, the whole entire time. It was an experience. No, but everybody, I didn't care. Everybody rides like that here. I've noticed one thing that's very interesting to me here is that guys will ride, like a woman will be driving her motorbike and a guy rides on the back and with no problems at all. And so I think a lot of like American standards of machismo and all this other stuff are like, they're just not worried about that here. They're just friendly, nice people. And then living on a beach for the cost of what it would be to live in the inner city in the late 70s, early 80s is awesome. Like I will eat a meal today and spend $2 on it, on the whole thing, and then another $1 on a fresh juice. So it's been
that retirement check's like just killing it.
Once the city finally got their head unfucked from their ass and started giving it to me, listen, if you can bring in $2,000 a month somehow or another, you can move abroad and live way better. I'm not worried about car insurance right now. Health insurance for me and my wife is $80. It's just, I don't know
Really?
why. Yeah. Yes. So we were paying before 60 after we got done, I was paying like $1,600 a month for help just for the two of us.
That's why I'm still in the military.
Yeah, man.
It's like $200 for me.
Yeah. So we ran into, when we were doing our border, every 90 days you have to leave and then, to reset your visa. And on the visa run, we ran across a kid who had been being stupid out racing a motorbike, but he wrecked his bike, had a compound fracture with a bone sticking out of his leg, had to have an emergency ambulance trip to the hospital, a 3-day stay, emergency surgery, the cast, all of his medications, food, and all of that was $750.
Damn. And
that would have been 70 grand.
And
anybody who's ever had,
you trust the medical system over there, all good to go?
Oh God, it's so good. It's so good. People are like, I think people just don't know. They haven't traveled. They haven't been.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I've traveled a lot, but I've never had, knock on wood, but I've never had to go to medical being in another country.
Yeah, man.
I don't have the experience.
So, yeah, that experience is scary. You're in a whole nother place. You don't know what to look for. But especially in like modern cities, especially like Da Nang, you've got all the, like, this is a very technologically savvy city. Like everybody drives electric cars, a lot of electric cars here. They have cool tech everywhere. And the hospitals are super duper clean, high tech, modern. They have x-ray tech that I hadn't seen before. I'm used to the United States x-ray stuff. They put the big lead blanket on you and do all this other stuff. Like now, even like I had to have a root canal the other day. My root canal in the States was $1,500. My root canal in Da Nang I had to have the work and a crown added, and I spent like $225.
Dang.
And from a high tech, modern dentist office, like super duper fancy with everything you would see in like a nice place. And it's just, when you go in for medical care here, you could tell they don't want to see you again. Meaning, not because they're like mean, but just because like, let me make sure we help you so you don't have to come back. So people, it's crazy being able to afford food, healthcare. I spend maybe $4 or $5 a week in gas.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah,
dude.
Super cool.
Ryan said, Murph, can we come visit? Maybe stay a couple nights.
I need, Ryan, I need to know who you are, who's your family. What's your mama's name? Do y'all go to church on Sundays?
Right.
No, I'm just no. Look me up. Look for sure. Anybody interested in coming here? Yes, look me up. Yes, connect. No, you can't stay in my place because no, man. I'm just still weird that way. But yeah, we can hang out. We'll go and we'll get some.
Yeah. Wade said Vietnam, Bangkok, and prison. It doesn't count if you're. It doesn't count. You're good, Murph. He's talking about.
Okay. I'll take it. I'm sorry. I'll take it then, man. Everybody I've met here, like the encounters that I've had have been just like super duper cool. And it's good to get out of the States, guys, just in general, because you don't recognize how much being in America, how much you're just used to being around Americans. Being with American culture and certain expectations and stuff. So it's not just the benefits of not having to pay a bunch of stuff. We forgot what it was like to have community. We really did. Yeah. How many of y'all know your neighbors? Like really, really know your neighbors, And so it's nice to be able to have that transition. But anybody who's coming to Vietnam, y'all look me up and we'll link up for sure.
I'm talking about knowing your neighbors. I'm trying to convince my neighbor. We're going to eventually need to get a new fence. The wood fence, the privacy fence that's between us, like, it's on its way out, but he just built this massive, like, I don't even know what to call it, man shed in his backyard, right? And he's building like a whole workout area and all that shit. I'm like, bro, we should put a party fence. Like, have you ever seen the party fence where you can like tilt it or like it turns into a table?
And it turns into a table, like a bar top.
Yeah, like a bar top. Yeah. Like, bro, we get that. I was like, then I can just come over, work out. I've got a power rack, like a Rogue power rack.
Yeah.
So I was like, don't bother buying one of those. I don't have anywhere to put it right now since we moved into our house that we got. So I was like, we'll put my power rack in your barn that you built because he's building a whole workout room there. And he's
Hell
like,
yeah.
I got the weights. I was like, all right, let's go. And so I want to build a party fence with my neighbor. It'd
I
be
long
fun.
for the day of having neighbors again that I can do stuff like that with. You know
Hell
what I
yeah.
mean? Having the block cookouts where everybody puts tables out on the street and like,
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all ever did that, like when you were younger, and just having like a whole, like, just everybody comes out and just like have a picnic that goes all the way
Yeah.
down the block kind of deal.
Hell yeah.
I like that. I miss that world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's probably not a whole lot of brothers out there. you see the one black guy.
Look, so there are a lot of black dudes. There's a lot of black people in Da Nang, which is super cool. But any place in the world that we go, now we've had the experience. Black Americans, we recognize one another, and we're always so excited to see each other. So when I see another brother out here in Da Nang, this is how we recognize it, and this is how I can tell the difference from like seeing like somebody who's like from Britain or African, or
not American,
Nigeria,
yeah,
or something like that, because their culture is not really predicated in speaking a lot.
Yeah.
So I make the mistake. I'm just excited, especially when we got here to Vietnam. We weren't in Da Nang first. We were in Ha Long Bay, and there were not hardly any. I didn't see any American brothers out there at all. So like, with the exception of like in the last couple of days, I saw my first one. I was super excited. You know, I did the head nod to him, and he's like, you know, I was like, oh, you know. Yeah. But interestingly enough, I'm learning that just from on a cultural tip, like Brits, like black Brits, don't really do that too much. Africans don't like, and again, and we talk about Africa, people talk about Africa like it's a country, but folks from like Nigerians, you know, folks from Liberia, do stuff like that. But African cultures in general are a little bit less likely to acknowledge. That's very much an American thing.
Yeah.
So I can always tell that I see another brother from the States because I do the head nod, and he'll do the head nod too, because we're so excited to see each other. And the next thing you know, we're dapping up. And
I was saying it's like finding two unicorns that run into each other.
Yeah. It's always a good number because, you know, expats have a tendency to have the same kind of mentality on things, man. We're looking to kind of dissociate from the bullshit, get out of the political arena, reset our nervous systems, eat some healthy food, save some money. So you got people with stuff in common, which is cool.
Yeah. I love these type of comments. JT 2020 said, you should take serious action with San Antonio against police chief accused of giving a homeless man a feces sandwich. Disgusting from those who are supposed to be a higher standard.
This keeps coming up. This really fucked people up. Like, what's wrong with this dude?
Yeah.
I mean, the one who did that.
Yeah. Now, I understand that you want serious action, but when you say I need to take serious action, I've got just as much authority and swing in the game as you do. So
you do it, brother.
Yeah. Pointing at me to do it is just, you do it. I'm we the people just as much as you outside of my own police department.
Yeah.
So I can do a lot in my own fishbowl, but I can't do anything outside of that. I've got no jurisdiction, no power, no nothing. I may have a voice they listen to because I'm a cop, but that's what the show does. I bring attention to it. I hope us work together. We, the people, all work together to create a better society for each other. That's
Can I give people a little bit of context in that? You know, coming to these community meetings, the question was always looking at the police saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This is happening. Crime is here. What are you going to do? And I got to the point after being in the system for a while of recognizing that I have authority to act in the moment. And I have the authority to come back later and testify as to what I said and what I did. But in the big picture of things, citizens, you guys don't recognize that you have a lot more say-so than you think. You have a say-so as to decide if you have a police department or a sheriff at all. You have the say-so to decide specifically that's why going to the polls outside of the big election is important. You got to figure out, well, what's important to you as a community, and then make sure that you show up to the polls to vote for those things that are important to you. It is far more important, and people may disagree with this, but I have seen far too much evidence to show that it's true. It is more important that you go and vote in your local election for who's going to be your magistrate judge than it is for your vote for who's president. Your vote for the magistrate judge is going to affect you. Your vote for the sheriff is going to affect you more on a day-to-day basis Now, who you vote into office as president. And so when we went into the community meetings and people would be like, you guys aren't doing enough, I'd say, look, let me tell y'all how to fix this problem. And people either loved or hated this, but I think after a while they appreciated it. I said, look, if these magistrate judges that you voted into, I'm sorry, that you, or these superior court judges that you all voted for to put in a position, and what do? We show up to the polls and we look for that D or that R, and then that's just what we're going for. When in doubt, just vote along their party lines, right? And then we fuck around and wind up putting somebody in position who doesn't align with our positioning on crime, that doesn't align with our positioning on the criminal justice system in general, that has no, you don't even know what you're voting for. And then next thing you know, these guys are just letting people out. Because remember, the superior, and I don't know if this is like this in every state, but most of the ones, the superior court judges choose the magistrate judges. You guys can only choose your superior court judges.
Yeah.
That's what you typically see in elections. Local magistrates are typically chosen by the superior. My dad was Calvin Murphy, Judge 71 of North Carolina Superior Court. My dad was a Superior Court judge, so I know a little bit about how this works. You guys have say-so in who you vote for in these judges' office, not just your mayor, but your city council. Like, these are the important elections to vote in, guys, because you can flood their office with emails and say, hey, look, if this is important to you, you're going to stand on this and make sure that this gets done. Somebody's saying, appreciate it. But Michelle, thank you. You know, like, people will give you the opportunity to sit and talk to the police, and you can complain till the cows come home. At the end of the day, that officer is going to pull back in service after that sergeant's going to pull back in service after everything is done and get back to being reactive. Because the days of proactive policing, going out, really getting in these streets and chasing down the dope boys and doing all this other stuff, are quickly coming to an end just because people aren't fucking with that.
Yeah.
And I think people should have what they want, but we need to understand that there's consequences. When the officers pull back, crime is going to go up in some ways. If the officers pull back altogether and they're not out there checking on anybody, then we should expect to have more crime. That's why we need to have a different system, y'all. And I hope that the dots are starting to connect. There's a way for people to have more say-so, and you get to that through having your voice heard through your voting power. You vote into position the people who you want to be there, and if they don't do their job, you fucking fire them.
Yep. Give a shout out to HBO Matt. He dropped $5 in the super chat. The asshole, he knows better. He said, found out the Alamo has banned rifles. I'm gonna have to go fix that. They messed with everyone else. Now open carry Texas is going to get in on it. You may not know HBO Matt Murph. He is out there fighting the good fight about being able to carry and carry in town hall places and stuff like that. In Texas, we got a big problem of some of these town halls and city halls having unconstitutional signs up that say you can't carry when that's a violation. And HBO Matt has been very good at getting these signs taken down and showing them the error of their ways. So we love having him. We've had him on. Love talking to him. But yeah, he dropped $5 for us, and he's out there doing the Lord's work. We love it. So
I know that's right. Can I weigh in on that real quick? I am probably the biggest gun guy you have ever seen in your life. I've got a Fort Knox Maverick safe, 1,000-pound safe at home. I've got a 300-pound safe. I've got a couple other safes back in storage and I don't know how many guns I have anymore. To be honest with you, I have no idea. Something in every make, model, platform, bump fires that I used to have before I lost them in that tragic boating accident. Reflex triggers, you name it, right? Silencers. I was into it. For the first time in my life, living in a world where there's just no guns anywhere, and I know that's not the state of affairs in the United States, I have started to really change my views on gun laws.
Really?
Been out here, yeah.
Since you've been out there.
Since being out here, right? So people are going to probably say, "Oh, yep, he's turned into a communist. We knew it was coming," and that's just that's not the case. It's just that this I've never seen. And mind you, you go back to my home where I live, and you'll find safes filled. You'll find safes filled up with guns.
Yeah.
But since I've been here and being in an environment where there are just none, meaning the police don't carry guns here. They have them, but they don't carry them out on patrol.
Right.
I've seen one firearm since I've been in Da Nang for 10 months. It was on a security guy outside of a bank, sitting next to a uniformed police officer with no gun. And the crime here is just violent. Like, I don't even know what violent crime is here. Typically, it's happening because some foreigner is drunk and
does some dumb shit.
Doing some dumb shit. But when it comes down to the locals, I haven't seen any evidence. I know it's anywhere you go, there's crime. I just haven't seen any evidence of it whatsoever. I haven't heard any news reports of people shooting each other because nobody's carrying guns here. So interestingly enough, and I know America's a different world. Our society, and I used to make this argument all the time, was formulated based off of distrust for the government. We have the Second Amendment because we were not like the Brits. Our society was not stabilized by the love of queen and country. We distrusted our government, and so we armed ourselves. But it's been very interesting to see a world with no guns and that's entirely safe. You know, my wife can go downstairs at 2 o'clock in the morning and walk around on the streets completely safely. And so it's like, I can see what people are talking about now, you know? And I love my guns. It's just gonna start to change.
That is interesting, sir. I like that. Well, sir, we are creeping up on 3 hours. We're about 2:45. So I am going to wrap it up. I do appreciate having you on, sir. We're going to have you on some more as long as you're willing.
Oh, man, I'd love to come back, brother. This was a good time.
I'm watching the comments, and I get a pretty good vibe from my comments. They don't dislike you, so at least not from what I'm seeing so far. And I think
sounds good.
I think they definitely love the fact that you're willing to answer the tough questions and call out shit that you see. Which I think I even put in the description that there's going to be a twist, and I find it interesting. You know, your path was so, optimistic, and then at the end, even though you have a negative connotation towards what your experience was, I still don't feel like you have a negative, cynical outlook to it. I just think you think we got to fix it, and here's how we fix it. There's a positive to it. And I think that's why you and I get along so well, is because I am idealistic, optimistic guy, and I didn't have the negative experience you had, but I know it exists. I've seen it. I've seen it. That's why I keep doing what I do. So we're able to have this conversation and both believe that we can help fix things. It's just, how are we going to get that done? Well, we got to have these conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
Got to be honest. We got to acknowledge the other person's perspectives. And I think that's what we're doing on here. And it was good. It was a good show.
It was a great show, man. I mean, so one, I would just want to say thank you for inviting me on here. Let me share my story. It's been just, bantering back and forth with you and with your viewers, man, has been an extraordinary experience. And, one of the things that I really appreciate about your channel and content is that it's difficult to be sworn to something and be able to still maintain a position of balance and moderation.
Yeah.
The all police, or I never find too many great arguments with people who stand with the all police. You know what I mean? So the folks who are like, all cops are bad, and it's just not the case. I think that being able to look at things individually and objectively and be honest about the good parts and the bad parts of it, and about what we need to how we need to address it, is dope as fuck. And your content, I think, is really, really relevant. And I hope that you pick up a lot of viewers from this episode, man, because this is what creates trust with people who are dealing with law enforcement, folks who are willing to say, yeah, this is fucked up right here. This is the name of the fucked up person. This is the name of the fucked up action. And this is what we needed to do. Man, I think if we had more of that, law enforcement would be looked at differently.
Yeah.
Because you can't, let's keep it a gram. You can't polish a turd.
Yeah.
Some things are need to be changed. Some things need to be gotten rid of altogether. Some things need to be steered in a different directions, and some need to be left alone. But I appreciate the balance that you bring. So
thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Marines Blood. Good look.
Yeah. That's one of my mods. He's looking out for you.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's I think personally, and I'll end it on this. I do think personally that if we can get cops to have these conversations, because I've had these conversations with lots of cops that have a similar perspective that I have.
Yeah.
That would help the public realize there's more than just a couple cops that get it. There really are a lot of cops that get it. They just don't speak it. And not everybody's comfortable doing this. Like this is a rare thing. Like I happen to be lucky. I'm very much a extroverted person, and I picked up on this pretty easy. It worked for me, but not everybody's got the social skills to do this or the want to do it like this. And that's fine. But then the other side of the house is you've got I think that the public wants to know that the ones that don't get it can learn from us. Cause I think there's cops that it's not necessarily, it's like the Matrix. They just don't realize they're in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think there's a lot of cops like that. They're not against doing better and learning from us. They just don't realize what that big picture is yet, like we do, because we've got so much time behind the badge. So
man.
So I think that's just that's how we keep doing it here, and I think it's working. But
yeah, man. I'm not even a Christian. I know a lot of viewers are, but you know, I know the Bible. I was for 25 years. There's a scripture that says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." You know, so I think the more that we know, the more information that we're able to get out there about how things work, why people operate the way that they do, the better overall understanding, man. But yours is the platform to get that done, brother. Your content is always balanced across the board. There's nobody who's going to come in your shit and be like, oh, he just was too, polarized on this one topic and it didn't make any sense, man. That's not there. I think this is one of the frustrations that people have with law enforcement.
Yeah.
But no, man, thank you for the time and the invite. Your people are cool as hell too, man. Shout out to the comment section.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to see it, but I haven't seen all of them, but the ones that pop up across the bottom.
Yeah.
The big
Ryan.
Sponsorship. Oh, okay.
Eric's doing it for the fame, the money, and the big corporate sponsorship he's getting.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, shit,
Right,
man, point me in the right direction. I need that.
Yeah, exactly. Appreciate it. Everybody out there, appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the donations and the love today. We really appreciate that. I will be out of town. I will try to jump on. I'm going to be on a laptop. I'm going to be at conferences. I'm going to be out of Georgia, and then I'm going to be out at Phoenix, Arizona for the next 2 weeks. I'll be out. So I'm going to try to put some reels and stuff together while I'm gone, but you guys know how it is when I'm traveling. You might get some stuff, you might not. We'll see. So everybody else, thank you.